Head to Knoxville, don't be late. Baker's Live, it's gonna be great. June 5th and 6th, mark your date at Dollywood, we'll celebrate. Meet Baker and more cool friends. Live show magic that never ends. Come to Dollywood, feel the vibe. With great people there, it's gonna be a ride. Rides, fun, and meet and greet. Baker and pals, the crew's so sweet. Get ready for laughs, cheers, and thrills. Knoxville's the place, it's giving chills. Meet Baker and more cool friends. Live show magic that never ends. Come to Dollywood, feel the vibe. With great people there, it's gonna be a ride. June 5th and 6th, don't miss the fun. Meet Baker and friends, it's second to none. Baker and friends, it's second to
Hey everyone, and welcome back to Day 2 afternoon. Morning session, for those of you who are just joining, was sadly they don't show crime scene stuff or any evidence in this case, but we had a kind of like a hybrid between the police officer and a DCF agent, and that was a little interesting because there had been a lot of problems with both Collin and his mother. She had a history of oxys, drinking, and threats to unalive herself. So that was a little interesting. Collin had multiple times warned that he didn't want to go back, but they kept putting him back in the home, even though the mom was very unstable. Could potentially be positive for the defense, but
you may be seated.
And we're having 3 afternoon witnesses, so probably gonna end oily. She is some Canva lady.
All right, we're back on the record. Mr. Griffith is present with both lawyers. Mr. Levine is here for the state. Anything before we bring in the jury? You've had an opportunity to review the exhibits that have been modified.
It's just one exhibit, and yes, because the other one you said isn't coming in. Remember?
That's right.
Because I did the same thing. So I think we're good to go.
All right. Anything, Mr. Levine?
No, Your Honor.
Okay.
Jemima have made a family tree. We was talking about this yesterday, who was who, and down here we have Collin, his deceased parents, and this must be the uncle and the aunt we heard about, and Susan is the grandmother they also talked about. So I bet you can find that in the Discord if you want to go look into the family tree, because yesterday we all got confused when they talked about aunts, cousins, alpacas, llamas. So if you want to get up to date on the shallow family tree, you can go and try and figure out who belonged to where. But it's going to be interesting. The state said they were way ahead of their schedule and will probably be resting Monday. It was set to be a 2-week trial, and that'll mean they could be done in 4 days. Tomorrow, I will be covering the Karen Reed trial with the wonderful Valhalla Waits, if he can get out of bed. But he has the link. He can always join if he wants. And then we'll catch up with this one. It's a bit slow going, so I don't think it's going to be a big problem if we have to do it. And I don't know how much. It's a motions hearing and evidentiary hearing tomorrow in the Karen Reed case. So I don't know how long that is going to be. If they're going to argue the motions, or Bev is saying, I read them. But we'll have it in the back pocket. We can always do it Sunday if nothing else. The Statue Day will be held, and we'll see how many people will join us for Statue Day. I have asked the guests, maybe they say yes, or they don't say yes, but we'll see. Hey, Jenny.
Welcome back.
Well,
Mr. Levine.
Thank you so much for coming back. Good to see you.
Corporal Joel Moore with the Charlotte County Sheriff's Office.
There's always alpacas lurking somewhere in a trial.
Step right here, raise your right hand and vote for you.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
We had those two witnesses yesterday. It was two old biddies who, one of them said she was flailing her arms, throwing clothes in the car. He walked over to her, kind of grabbed her by the neck, by the hair. She was screaming, "You're hurting me, you're pulling my hair." And they walked into the house. He didn't see she was being dragged inside. The other biddy said he had his arm on her shoulder, and none of them called the police. So the story we heard in opening statements that she was violently being drug-arrested inside wasn't really substantiated by the two eyewitnesses. It was more either he was grabbing her by her hair or by the neck or by the shoulder. That's what we got from yesterday. Well, Grandma gets around.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Corporal Moore, good afternoon. Could you please introduce yourself to the jury and spell your name for the record?
I'm Corporal Joella Moore, Joella, last name Moore.
How long have you been employed in law enforcement?
I've been in law enforcement 24 years. I've been with Charlotte County Sheriff's Office a little shy of 23 years.
And what are some of the different units that you've worked in law enforcement? I
worked in corrections as a correction deputy. I worked road patrol. I was a school resource officer. I worked our street crimes unit. Then I was promoted, and I went back to road patrol. Currently, I'm a corporal over our juvenile unit, and I also worked intel as a juvenile intervention detective.
So tell the jury a little bit about your kind of specialty or specialized knowledge about interacting with juveniles as it pertains to criminal justice system and in life in general.
So the majority of my adult life has been working with at-risk kids. Prior to law enforcement, I worked in Oregon under the Special Education Department, working with at-risk kids, severely emotionally disturbed, ages 13 to 18. I moved here to Florida to take care of my grandparents and came into law enforcement, quickly ended up as a school resource officer. Like I had said, did that for the majority of my career at Charlotte County, and then went to the juvenile intervention detective, which works with the most at-risk kids. And currently now I'm back overseeing the juvenile unit where I started.
Now, how was it that you first became acquainted with Collin Griffith and his mom, Kathy Griffith?
We were in a transition. As I got promoted to the juvenile from the juvenile intervention detective position to corporal for road patrol, I worked with our new juvenile intervention Detective Zanioni and Corporal Rentis. So we were still in the transition of, they would ask me questions about kids and some resources that we have that they may not have had knowledge to. And Collin came up in that.
Did the defendant appear to be comfortable talking to you and to Lacey and Rentis?
Yes.
Now, did you have an opportunity to respond to the Griffith household in Port Charlotte, November 13th of 2023?
Yes,
in
sir.
relationship to the domestic violence battery investigation?
Yes, sir.
Now, did you and your fellow deputies have body cam footage?
Yes.
Body cam on so that it produced footage?
Yes, sir.
And is one of the deputies that also responded with you at different times, Deputy Janowski?
Yes, sir. I was his supervisor.
And I understand he has a SUV, is that correct? Or he did back when this happened, law enforcement vehicle?
Yes, sir.
And in the back, is there something called an in-car camera?
Yes, sir.
And does that basically record video and audio of whoever's in the back seat of a car?
Yes, sir.
And on the specific date, November 13th, including 10:26 p.m. of November 13th, 2023, as well as after midnight, November 14th, 2023 at 2 a.m. And thereafter, would Deputy Janowski's in-car camera just be continuously running?
They're activated when we turn them on, or they can be activated. All of our body cameras will be activated if our firearms are pulled, if our tasers are utilized, or in that general facility, if another officer's equipment has been pulled. That way we can capture everything. So we have these automatic safeguards that'll signal the activation of our cameras on the lights on our patrol car. Right, if we turn our lights on, they automatically kick in, or we can manually turn them on.
At some point during the night, was the defendant arrested for TV battery on his mom?
Yes, sir.
And at some point during the night, was he put in the back of Janowski's vehicle?
Yes, sir.
And did Janowski's in-car video capture the defendant talking in the backseat of the car?
Yes, sir.
Now, there's been a name mentioned, Corporal Rentis, who's now Sergeant Rentis. What was his relationship to the defendant?
He had a close relationship with the defendant and the family, and would frequently speak to him or have communications if they were having trouble to try to resolve or preside, give resources to the family.
And on the in-car camera, is the defendant have access to a cell phone on his lap?
Yes, sir.
And describe to the jury how that came about.
I had received a phone call from Corporal Rentis, who was actively on the phone with the defendant. Rentis had told me that there was some type of disturbance over at the house. So I responded over there, notified Central that I had just received a phone call from Corporal Rentis. At the time, he's since been promoted. I'll refer to him as Corporal Rentis so it doesn't get confusing. And so we responded over there, and Corporal Rentis maintained phone contact with Colton.
At certain times, would you appear at the side of Janowski's SUV and interact with the defendant?
Yes, sir. So whenever we have a person in the back of our patrol car, we monitor them, keep them within ear and eye, so we can hear what's going on and see them in case there's some type of an emergency or if they need assistance. So we don't have to stand necessarily right there all the time, but we have to be able to hear them if they need assistance.
And in terms of the state exhibits 191, 192, and 193, all being in-car videos from Janowski on November 14th. Actually, it looks like they're all from the early morning hours of November 14th. Have you had an opportunity at some time to watch the in-car camera footage?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, this time the state would move State Exhibit 191, 192, and 193 into evidence.
Any objection?
We'll start with 191. And before, as we get that queued up, was there some subject matter in which the defendant was talking about kind of two different personas, Collin 1 and Collin 2.
Yes, sir.
Hey, 80s and Amica.
I'll say it to you like this, if you want to know. Collin 1 is, I guess, he's who just wants to survive, help people, and do good things in the world. And Collin 2 is the one that protects Collin 1 in situations where he can't escape from. And Collin 2 is the one that killed someone. But you're talking to Collin 1. You're talking to Collin 1. The one who just wants to help people and just wants to.
So is that the cell phone that's visible on the defendant's lap?
Yes, sir.
And he's talking to Corporal Rentis?
Yes, sir.
Next, we'll segue to 192. Oh, and for the record, that was, you could turn that back on, John.
Hey, Nifty. Yeah, Collin 1 is just wanting. Could be a weird way of describing himself, but it was just nothing much. In my age, that's a good day when anything's up.
So we can see the time and the date.
Rentis.
So that clip appears to be from November 14th, 2023 at 1:59 a.m. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. The state will next publish 192.
I need to figure out exactly what you're scared of without having you descripted and you giving me some sense of stuff.
Scared of going back in there, Rentis. Jesus, how many times do I gotta say it? That's all I'm scared of. That's it.
I'm fucking scared of that call.
Yes, I am, Rentis, because what's it gonna come down to next time?
I don't think you're a pussy. I think that you are capable of killing your mother, but I don't think that you will.
No, why would I?
I will let you get to that.
So we didn't hear him say he was going to unalive his mom. We heard the officer say, "I believe you're not a kitty, but I think you're capable of doing it." And it seems like he's going to say something the other way. And he talks about, "I just don't want to go back in."
They call and let you get to that. I can't hear you, sorry. Why call me strong that visual? Why would you submit in a roundabout way? So call to when we talk about.
It's the strongest version of me.
Did you hear Corporal Moore, the defendant, saying, yeah, he would, as it pertains to Collin 1, allowing him to kill his mom?
I did, sir.
And that is
That's editorializing. The jury should be instructed. They must rely on their own ears, not another person's interpretation of what was said.
On November 14th, 2023, at about 2.
It's different from every courtroom. Normally we would see, but I think it's a stupid setup in the court. That's the reason why we don't see it. Has nothing to do with all you snowflakes.
21 in the morning.
Yes, sir.
And
Yes, I was asked on the morning stream. There's no other stream. This is the only feed from this courtroom.
for the final clip will be State Exhibit 193.
He's tried as an adult. It doesn't matter. We saw Carly Gregg. It's simply because they don't have the setup in the courtroom, I think. Even though there's a big television right behind her, they could play it on that one, but could be technical difficulties. It wouldn't be the first time court doesn't have their ducks in an order.
I don't know how I'm going to react if she does, when she does that again. If I can
Sorry,
control
I'm just gonna
myself
go
or
back because I had sped that up. Yeah, but the camera isn't the screen isn't on. That was what I meant, because we were yelling yesterday. You can just put it on that big big television right behind you.
I don't know how I'm going to react if she does, when she does that again. If I can control myself or how that's going to happen.
What do you think you might do to her
If she tries to hit me again, I might hit her back really, really hardly and badly.
You gonna hurt her?
Yeah.
Okay.
If she tries to hit me again,
Right, that was not November 14, 2023 at 3:22 a.m.
Yes, sir.
So at the end of that investigation, is it a fair statement the defendant was arrested?
Yes, sir.
this was actually today they talked about that.
But more, I don't have any further questions.
They were in connection with DCF.
Cross.
Yeah, I don't, again,
Good afternoon.
Corporal Moore, every time that Collin said, either in your presence or on the camera footage that you've reviewed, that he might hurt his mom or he was afraid he would hurt his mom, he prefaced that statement by saying, if she hits me, or if she comes at me, or if she attacks me, I'm afraid I'll hurt her. Correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So he never said, I just want to kill my mom for no reason whatsoever.
No, ma'am.
Don't think I have any other questions. But Collin told you that night that his mom had punched him before he threw her on the ground, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Redirect.
Nothing further.
Is the witness released?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
without her editorializing, I wouldn't have gotten out of that tape that, oh, he was going right in there and
Your Honor, the
unaliving
state
her.
calls Deputy Joseph Janowski of the Charlotte County Sheriff's Office.
Was he the guy who was next to it? Well, sometimes you need to unalive some
Somebody
people.
read writing.
Finally, someone of normal height who doesn't look like a teenager.
Thank you. Deputy Janowski, can you please introduce yourself to the jury?
I'm Deputy Janowski with the Charlotte County Sheriff's Office.
Tell the jury about your education and training and experience.
So I went to the police academy. I've done multiple specialty classes like speed and measurement, as well as narcotics and dangerous drugs. I'm a pit instructor for the Charlotte County Sheriff's Office. I currently work on the road patrol, so you call 911 in my area. I'm the one showing up.
I want to direct your attention specifically to this case as it pertains to the defendant. Did you have an opportunity to respond to address in Port Charlotte as part of a domestic violence battery investigation?
I did.
And at the time, were you a field training officer of another one of the deputies who was present?
I was.
And who were you supervising?
I was training Deputy Sharp.
And were you basically overseeing him and allowing him to do his part of the investigation?
Correct.
What was your role in the investigation?
So I was overseeing, so he was in his final phases of training. So I let him do his investigation. I'm there to guide him if he has questions or to help him along if he gets stuck in a certain situation.
Now, while you were doing that, did you have your body cam going?
I did.
When the investigation was kind of coming to an end, were you inside with Kathy Griffith and her mom, Susan Detman, in the living room area?
I was.
And were you asking certain questions that pertains to domestic violence within the household?
I did.
Your Honor, the state at this time would move State Exhibit 189 into evidence.
Any objection?
No objection.
Will be received.
I just need one moment, Your Honor.
A couple quick yes or no questions I almost forgot before we go. And do you think he's capable of killing you?
Yes.
Does he have access to a firearm? And all right. Any other questions before we leave? Okay. All right. Well, thank you for your time.
So when you asked, do you think he's capable of killing you, was her response yes?
Yes, it was.
Objection, Your Honor. Juries are the finders of facts. Let them determine what they heard on the tape.
And then in the back of your patrol vehicle, and for the record, that was from around November 13th, 2023 at 10:26 p.m. Excuse me, at 10:20 p.m. This next video, 190, from the back of your vehicle will be at November 13th, the same day at 10:26 p.m.
That's not in evidence yet.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right, Your Honor. Let me ask you a couple of questions about that. Now, as you return to your vehicle, did your body cam capture a little bit of a conversation between Susan Detman, who was standing outside of your patrol vehicle as she spoke with her grandson, the defendant?
It did.
Your Honor, at this time, the state would move State Exhibit 190 into evidence.
No objection.
It will be received.
And with the court's permission, we'll play it for the jury.
Amen.
Thank you.
Why did you stand up? And why did you say? No, you didn't. You stood up and said, okay, let's do it. Let's do it. Yes, you did. I was there.
I was saying, no, I'm not a psychopath. I'm not this murderer. I'm just trying to peacefully coexist and just figure something out. She kept telling me to shut up and shut up. But when I wouldn't shut up, she hit me.
No, that's not what happened, Collin. That's not what happened. You never said you wanted to peacefully coexist.
I've been saying that.
You said that in the car, but not there with her.
Deputy, towards the beginning of that clip, did you hear the defendant say, I'm not a psychopath? Mom, I'm not a psychopath. I'm not this murderer.
I did.
Deputy Janowski, I have no further questions for you.
Jamie,
Ross?
I'm not a psychopath.
You sure about that?
Yeah, I haven't unalived anyone today.
Today,
On purpose.
yeah. I mean, that's true.
On purpose.
Yeah.
Colin was in the back of, was that your car or was that somebody else's car?
That was my car.
For over 5 hours that night, wasn't he?
I don't know the exact time frame. That doesn't sound right.
Well, one of the camera clips we've seen was from like 10 p.m. on the 13th. And then the last one from your car was 2:30 or so on the 14th, 2:30 a.m. So sorry, 4.5 hours. Does that sound about right?
I couldn't say for sure. It sounds like a long period of time for someone that was arrested for battery to sit in the back of a car for 4 hours to me.
Is it fair to say that this investigation took a long time?
It did take a reasonable amount of time.
I'm not saying that anybody
Yeah.
delayed anything. I'm just
Yeah.
saying that it wasn't a quick, we can determine exactly what happened right away kind of thing, was it?
No, because people had conflicting stories.
Right. That last little bit, that clip that showed part of a conversation between Susan Detman and Colin, Colin said that his mom had called him a psychopath and a murderer, right?
I know Colin stated in that clip, I'm not a psychopath. I'm not this murderer, if I'm quoting it correctly.
But he said that I told my mom that I'm not that, correct? Implying that she had called him those things.
I know he said the word mom before he made that statement.
Did you ever ask Kathy whether she called him those names?
No.
Thank you.
Redirect.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
The witness released.
Yes.
Thornhill. Thank you.
Thank you.
78 watching. But still, please hit the like and do all the things that YouTube wants you to do.
Your Honor, the state calls Detective Danny Peters with the Polk County Sheriff's Office.
You can touch my like diddle little little it. You can touch my like diddle little little it. Oh, are we going to see some evidence?
I hope so.
Yeah, I'm kind of not sad that we won't be covering it live tomorrow if the hearing in Karen Reed goes on. Thank you, Edward Scott. Always hit it twice. That's what Little D told me to as well.
No, you don't want to do that.
That's what I said to Little D.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Oh, he has all the evidence.
Was this like
All right,
the
thank
lead
you.
detective?
Could you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Yes, Danny Peters, DANNY PETERS, detective with the Polk County Sheriff's Office.
And what division do you work in?
I'm with the Homicide Division.
In this case, are you the case agent, the lead detective?
I am.
Tell the jury about your.
That's quick. We get the lead detective, and we had the first witness was the crime scene investigator. Normally they build it a little different. Hey, he just had his dome glow, so it's a little shiny.
Education, training, and experience.
Oh, he did.
In 2010, I went to the Basic Law Enforcement Academy. Upon graduation, I was hired by the Polk County Sheriff's Office, where I've spent 14 years, most of them in investigations, and led me to this point.
Now, when you investigated this case, had you been in the homicide division for a certain period of time?
Just several years.
And have you investigated countless homicides?
Yes.
How did you first get called out to this case?
We were notified by supervision to respond to a death investigation.
And do you recall approximately what time you arrived on scene?
7:25 approximately.
And was that actually to the crime scene, the residence?
Yes, sir.
And that's in Polk County?
Yes.
Describe to the jury kind of your mentality as a homicide detective when you get to a scene. What's it like?
Well, initially when you get to a scene, it's a little chaotic. You make contact with deputies on scene and you learn what they responded to and what they heard upon their arrival.
Now, about how many detectives might be working a case, like this case in particular? How many detectives were working at the same time you were? Or was it multiple detectives?
Multiple detectives. We had more than 5.
And do each one of you kind of have multiple things that you're investigating?
Yes, we have different tasks when we're on scene.
And then how do you get?
He has shoulders, but he forgot the little trick where you just pull your jacket down when you sit down. So it
It's
doesn't
driving
become
you
so-
nuts, isn't it?
Yeah. Because I have my weird shoulder, it always crumples up on the one side, and it annoys the all heck out of me. But I can't do much in a t-shirt.
Updates from each other to see where the investigation is at or where it's headed?
So through the course of the investigation, we tend to come together and brief each other in reference to what we've learned, any evidence we've obtained. We call each other on our cell phones and explain where we're at and what we're doing.
What's the crime scene / forensic investigators' role at a scene?
They're to arrive and preserve evidence for us, document evidence.
And I take it they were present the night of?
Yes, sir.
And do they kind of work on their own, or are you as the lead detective telling them what to do or what to look for? How does that work?
No, so as a detective, I give them direction in reference to stuff that I'm looking for or things that I need, as well as the other detectives on scene also give them instructions.
So when you show up on scene, do you know where the defendant was?
From what I was told, the defendant was in the back of a patrol car.
So is it a fair statement you were not interacting with him at that time, but rather were then surveying the scene?
Correct.
Describe to the jury what you did.
So upon arriving, I made contact with the initial deputy who briefed me of what he encountered upon arriving. And then once I learned that information, we made contact with the medical examiner to explain exactly what it was that we had on scene. And the grandmother arrived on scene, and then we began to do our interviews.
Did you have an opportunity to actually speak and interview the grandmother, Susan Detman, that evening?
I did.
And was that a one-time thing, or did you interview her any additional times after the night of September 8th?
Yeah, I interviewed her again after the initial night we were on scene, yes.
Now, and she was / is the owner of that house, correct?
Yes.
Did you have an opportunity to go inside the house to see what was going on inside?
I did.
And was Kathy's body still there when you were there?
It was.
Now, you mentioned that you spoke to the medical examiner. In this case, did you speak to Dr. Garavan?
Yes, it was Dr. Garavan that was the on-call medical examiner, yes.
And explain to the jury about why you called him and what you were hoping to learn from.
So I explained to him the manner in which we found the decedent and the severity of her injuries. And he was giving me an explanation of the probability of what may or may not have happened.
Would the medical examiner then the next day do an autopsy?
Yes, he did.
What did you notice that caught your attention about the crime scene, both outside and inside?
Well, I noticed it was well organized. It was clean. Outside, the victim and the defendant's vehicles were parked at the residence. And then inside was very organized.
Did it appear that there had been a long, drawn-out fight of any type?
No.
Now, as part of any homicide investigation, do you obtain evidence from cell phones?
We do, yes.
Now, when there's a cell phone of interest or that may be wrong,
We haven't seen any evidence shown in the trial because they have some weird way where we don't see anything. There's a big, I think it's a 55-inch TV screen right behind the witness, but they don't put evidence on that screen. I don't know if they have personalized monitors in front of the jurors or whatever they do, but we have seen nothing. So it's kind of, you're just sitting here and have to imagine what happens.
Well, they're not going to show pictures of Kathy anyway.
Well, if there's not too much of the red stuff on her, you can show some pictures. Jamie, don't be so. We've seen worse.
For a certain investigation.
I wish they did. So we could get like the
do you
full
have
effect.
professionals who are able to do forensic downloads?
We do. We have detectives that work for the Polk County Sheriff's Office that handle the downloads for us. Yes.
Tell us a little bit about
that's probably
what they do to accomplish that.
So they use programs such as Cellbrite to hook the phones or devices up that we take into our possession. And then once they hook these devices up, it starts to download the data off of those devices. And then they are able to attach it to like a USB or a CD and provide it to us. And then we are able to see what's on that device.
Sometimes are there limitations to what can be obtained from a cell phone?
Yes.
Sometimes are you guys able to get basically a full copy for copy, meaning whatever was on the cell phone, you can get all the information off the cell phone?
Yes.
Sometimes are you able to only get partial information from a cell phone?
Yes.
And does that basically just have to do with technology or some type of impediment to getting further information from a cell phone?
Yes. It depends on whether or not the program has downloaded or has reached a certain spec for that phone or computer.
Now, is the same, can a similar logistics be taken care of on a computer as well, downloading information off of a computer?
Yes.
Now, in this particular case, did you obtain cell phones from a cell phone from the defendant?
Yes.
You or somebody from your agency, of course?
Yes. I had another detective on scene with me that was able to get that cell phone.
And the defendant's cell phone came from his car, is that correct?
His car, yes.
And were you able to obtain the victim's cell phone, Kathy's cell phone?
Yes, we were.
And was that from the island in the kitchen?
It was in the kitchen, yes.
And then were you able to obtain the grandmother, Susan Detman's cell phone?
Yes.
And did she basically consent or allow that to happen?
Yes, she provided full consent to search her cell phone, written permission as well.
Now, were you able to get information / the downloads from Susan's phone?
Yes.
What about from the defendant's phone?
Yes, I was.
And what about from Kathy's phone?
Catherine's phone, not so much. It was a newer type phone that the program was not able to do a full download. So we sent that cell phone off to Homeland Security, where they have more advanced equipment, and they are in the process as we speak of attempting to download that cell phone for us.
At some time during your investigation, what did somebody bring you?
The case happened in September.
Yes.
Computer.
Yes.
And who brought you that?
That was her oldest son, Christopher.
And is that also the defendant's older brother?
Yes.
Do you recall approximately how many years older Christopher is than his brother, the defendant?
A couple, maybe 4, I believe.
Now, as it pertains to this case, it was Christopher Griffith, not totally irrelevant, but was he kind of had nothing to do with this case?
Yeah, he didn't have anything to do up to that point.
Now, when you obtained the computer through him bringing his mom's computer in, did you have your people attempt to get a download from the computer?
Yes.
And what happened?
We were not able to access the computer.
Do you know why?
Based upon the I guess the passwords or the protection it had on the computer wouldn't allow us to do a full download.
Sometimes our computers and or cell phones difficult or impossible to get into.
Yes.
Sometimes does it have to do with whether you have a password or what type of what make of the technology it is?
Yes.
So even though you weren't able to get into Kathy's phone, is it a fair statement that you were able to see a lot of her activity through the defendant's phone and Susan's phone?
Yeah, I was able to see all activity that she had through the defendant's phone and her mother's phone. Yes.
So, for instance, if Kathy texted her son or texted her mom, you'd be able to read those text messages as if you had Kathy's phone, correct?
Correct.
And any photographs sent back and forth or call logs or things of that nature, you'd be able to see on other people's phones that communicated with her?
Yes.
This is
So was that helpful?
Yes, it was.
a recent picture of her.
Big.
Now, during your investigation of the different cell phones, did you come across photographs of the defendant and his mom and Susan?
I did.
I'm going to hell, aren't I?
In terms of the positives of the family dynamics, what did you learn about from the photographs? What did you learn about that relationship between the defendant and his mom and Susan?
Well, just by the photographs, they appeared to be a happy family. Looked like they traveled a lot, visited a lot of locations, Disney World, cruises, the White House. It looked like they were happy.
You tell them, Marissa.
You asked me to do it.
Dr. Peters, did you have an opportunity to see a series of photographs in the form of, we'll start with 171, 171A, and 171B?
Yes.
And what about photographs 172 through 178 and 178A through 178I?
No, they probably just didn't have her password. My kids don't have my password.
Yes.
But Cellbrite can, well, most of the time you can jailbreak it.
Yeah. I forgot what the.
Your Honor, at this time, the state would move
They can't.
those
though.
mentioned exhibits into
Gray
evidence.
dog, gray key,
Gray something? Yeah.
Yeah.
And with the court's permission, we'll publish those photographs. We could go first to 171.
Yeah, that would be all her face. Oh, well. Then I saw her face. Now I'm an unliver.
I mean, you would think that would be the easiest solution, Marissa.
What did you learn from that picture?
Looks like they took a selfie, the victim and the defendant, maybe on a cruise. Looks happy.
Yeah, like Edward Scott says, always trust photos because have you ever noticed on Facebook, those of your friends who are the closest of getting a divorce is the most happy couple on Facebook?
Oh yeah, because every time you see it, you're like, oh, I never would have thought, because they looked like they were just the
everything
closest couple, and their family looked amazing. They're doing all these fun things together, and then you realize their entire relationship was
the last 2 weeks have been hashtag blessed, and I love my hobby, and then you find out, oh, he was screwing the secretary, and she was doing the pool boy, and none of the kids are his. That's
yeah, exactly.
171A.
Looks like a mother and son happy taking a photograph.
170.
He shouldn't be allowed to editorialize happy. Sorry, I know I've been saying it a lot today, but this isn't Judge Bev's courtroom where all the state victims are allowed to editorialize, but none of the defense witnesses.
A1B.
Selfie, mother and son happy, smiling.
And in that photograph, does it appear that Kathy has AirPods in her ears?
Yes, it does.
And they're white in color?
Yeah.
All AirPods are white in color.
We'll continue on to 172.
Are there any other colors?
You have a husband and a pool boy. Well, it's because of your generosity. I doubled up.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brendan, for getting me into trouble with both of them.
Is a nice photo. Looks like a mother and son happy there.
I
And
hate
through
that
your-
he gets to like
Through the
narrate
Cellbrite
that.
report, were you able to determine some of the dates of the originations of the photographs, that being in 2023 and 2024 throughout the different months?
Yes, sir.
Continuing on, 173. Who's pictured in the middle between Kathy and her son?
That is Susan Detman. That's the grandmother and the mother of the victim.
Would she periodically travel with them as well, do you know?
Yes.
174, 175, 176, 177, 178, 178A, and 178B. So far, these pictures, is it a fair statement that it's showing different locales and different places that mother and son had been together?
Yes.
178C. And it looks like they're in some type of courtroom or courtroom setup. Is that correct?
It looks that way, yes.
And this circular seal there, maybe you can see it on your computer. What is this?
This is on.
No? All right, no worries. It's not working. Looks like it says, well, it does say Stetson University College of Law. And once again, when there's a third person in these photos, is that Susan?
Yes.
178D. Does that look like it's at Disney or outside of Disney?
Yes, it does.
And for the purposes of the record, in a lot of these pictures, both the defendant and his mom appear smiling and happy. Is that correct?
Yes.
178E.
Jesus.
178F. 178G. Where does that look like it's taken?
Looks like it's taken at the Capitol in Washington.
Yeah, with you.
178 next. H. And then 178I. All right, thank you, John. So some of those photos were from, according to the Cellbrite report, correct me if I'm wrong, were from as early as April of 2023, looking like it went until June of 2024.
Yes.
Now, Detective Peters, did you find out that Kathy had Ring video capabilities inside her residence?
I did.
Was it both inside and outside?
Yes.
And describe to the jury some of the camera locations and what vantage point that would provide.
So there were 4 total Ring cameras that I gained access to. One was the doorbell that was outside. One was in the living room that encompasses the whole entirety of the living room. One was in the kitchen. One was in the victim's room, her bedroom, and one was in the defendant's bedroom.
In the bedroom?
Did you find that a little bit odd?
Her
that there
bedroom,
were
yeah.
so many cameras in
Both
so many
their
locations
bedrooms.
within someone's private residence?
Initially, I did, yes.
And based on your investigation, were you able to determine why there were cameras inside?
Yes.
And what was the reason?
His mother was a.
You had no evidence of that
Are you
speculation.
Without answering the question, but are you speculating or do you know from your investigation?
Judge, I'm gonna object. I think I know where this is going, and
Then it's
Opportunity to,
Yeah.
or
every time I try to skip forward.
all right, thank you, Your Honor. During your investigation, were you able to obtain Ring camera footage from the interior of the house?
I was.
And is that like a consistent 24/7 recording, or is it something else?
It looked like it was based on movement, and a lot of the times and the stamps were based upon movement.
So is there plenty of times when people are doing nothing of significance, such as moving around the house or just having regular conversations, things of that nature?
Oh, yeah. A lot of the times it was like that.
If the jury, if during this trial I put on every single minute of Ring camera footage in existence, would we be here for hundreds of hours?
Yeah, days.
All right. Now, was one of the rooms that you were able to get camera footage from the camera set up somewhere in the kitchen?
Yes.
And would that point out to capture both the kitchen and then the living room that's behind the kitchen?
Yes.
And then was there a similar camera in the living room?
She couldn't have told this officer. This officer didn't meet her until she was dead. That's why he can't testify to it.
Room that pointed out to the living room, and then behind the living room, the kitchen.
Yes.
That would be hearsay.
And is there a lot of audio wise? Is it a fair statement that there's a lot of things that you can hear clearly?
Yes.
And then are there some things that you just can't hear too clearly?
Some things are muffled. Yes.
Have you had an opportunity to, of course, provide all that Ring kitchen video footage?
I'm sorry. What was that?
Let me repeat that. The Ring video footage that you provided, have there been 2 exhibits prepared by me?
Yes.
All right. And do those represent September 7th of 2024 and September 8th of 2024?
Yes.
And for the record, Your Honor, that's State Exhibit 197 from the September 7th, 2024 date, and Exhibit number 198 from September 8th of 2024. What's the significance of September 8th, 2024?
There is a lot of dialogue back and forth between the victim and her mother and her attempts to make contact with the defendant.
And was that the date that she was ultimately killed?
Yes, it was.
That would be a Sunday?
Yes.
And on the September 8th video clips, is it a fair statement that the defendant is not in them because he's not present at the house?
Correct.
Were you able to determine the last day that he was at the house?
Yes.
Go ahead. What day was that?
It was September 7th.
Does September 7th capture some of?
But still, I don't know if that's it's going to be allowed. There was something that clearly there's something they had before, but it's not allowed in. So I think that'll probably again. This judge has been pretty fair with his rulings.
Of his interaction with his mom.
It does.
Now, during your investigation, did you come into contact with the name Jeffrey Rapkin?
I did, yes.
And who was that?
He is the attorney for Collin.
As it pertains to the DV battery case and maybe some family law logistics?
Correct. I learned that he was appointed his attorney. They hired him for the domestic violence case from November of the previous year.
And was there many conversations in text format between the defendant and Jeffrey Rapkin?
Yes.
Was there also conversations between Susan Detman and Jeffrey Rapkin?
Yes, there were.
Now, at some point, did you come across what was basically kind of like a photo icon of a business card of Jeffrey Rapkin?
I did.
And do you recall how the surrounding circumstances of how that came to your attention?
Yeah, looking through the grandmother's phone download, I observed it in her photographs.
All right, so when you click on it, it basically blows up in size to look like a business card?
Correct.
Your Honor, at this time, the state would move State Exhibit 187 into evidence. Now, based upon that, were you able to determine that the attorney was based out of Port Charlotte?
Yes.
And also Port Charlotte is the city where Kathy resided with her son?
Yes.
Also, were you able to figure out that the phone number 941-916-4096 was the cell phone number of Jeffrey Rapkin?
Yes.
And was that number the number that the defendant would communicate with via text message?
Yes, it was.
Was there a certain time, Detective Peters, when that phone number of Jeffrey Rapkin was in the defendant's phone, and at the top of the phone where somebody's either phone number or contact would be, it was the actual 10-digit phone number?
Yeah, just the phone number, yes.
And then at a certain point, was that phone number saved into the defendant's phone so it said Jeff Rapkin or Jeffrey Rapkin?
Yeah, it appears as if it was saved. The number was saved to a name.
But either way, it was always the same phone number, that being Jeffrey Rapkin's phone number, correct?
I believe so, yes.
And were you able to determine that through the many, many conversations that there would be points when Jeffrey Rapkin would address the defendant as like, Collin, blah, 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 or he would make comments and then say Collin to make it explicitly clear who the two people communicating were?
Yes.
Holly Joe, congratulations. Holly Joe is also turning 21 today, just as Crispy Bacon. How amazing. Two people is having their 21st birthday with us on the channel. Everyone wish Holly Joe a happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy 21st birthday. And many more. Plus Holly Joe. It's amazing. 2 21-year-olds in the chat today.
Happy birthday, Holly.
Now, I want to talk a little bit about the relationship between Kathy Griffith and her son, Collin Griffith. With a yes or no response, if possible. Was there an extended period of time, like approximately 3 years or so, where the defendant was living with his dad out of state?
Yes.
And no, it's not a spelling mistake. That was just what Crispy put in earlier when she said she had a birthday.
And at that point, did Kathy have limited or basically not much at all contact with her son?
Limited contact with her son, yes.
And did it appear from your investigation that she wanted to have a lot more?
Yes.
But that the defendant's father was difficult, to say the least?
Jamie, do you know a thing called divorce?
Yes.
Do you know in some divorce cases, moms and dads doesn't always agree on who should have most time with the kids?
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever heard about those things going kind of heated where one side is demanding a lot more time and the other side person said, no, we've been to the court. You can't have him. It's not a good environment. And they'll keep, come on now. I changed. I don't do all the oxy anymore. I flushed out the alligator I had in my bathroom, little D. Can I just see him? I really want to see him. I miss my son. It's not proof that it's really, really good for the son to go back to his mom. Maybe she want to see him. I'm pretty sure that every inmate in death row really want to see their kids. But baby mama probably ain't going to bring them.
Nope.
It's leading like all heck, but it's not leading as long as the defense isn't objecting to it.
Yep.
But I really don't like this prosecutor. I hate him more and more as he goes on because he's swarmy. He's a douche canoe.
Mm-hmm. Not a fan.
I don't have proof that the defendant's father was difficult. I have conversations between Collin and his mother while he lived in Oklahoma, and it did not appear as if it was a difficult situation to communicate with him. No.
All right. Now, at a certain point, did the defendant come to live with his mom?
Yes.
Now, at that point, had she basically missed out, and the defendant had missed out on about 3 years of relationship, mother-son relationship?
Yes.
Did they live in the Port Charlotte house basically up until this incident happened?
Yes.
Now, were you able to determine that did the defendant have his own bedroom at his house?
He did.
And did it appear that he knew the defendant, that there were Ring cameras in the household?
It did appear that way, yes.
And tell the jury about the things that indicated that.
When he would walk in a room where there was a camera, he would look directly into the camera.
And the cameras themselves, are they like hidden in something?
No, they're in plain view.
What cell phone service did Kathy and Collin have?
They had AT&T.
And in order to have an AT&T cell phone service, how old do you have to be?
18 years or older to purchase your own line or plan through AT&T.
Judge, I'm going to object to the foundation. I'm not sure how he has this information.
Send it to you, lady appropriate. Okay.
You really got Baker.
Now, how were you able to determine that Kathy had AT&T?
We have analysts that work with us through the course of our investigation that are able to determine through their programs that they utilize phone numbers that we give them that provide them with that information.
And during the...
Jamie, can you read this one?
What? So, I look right at my camera when I'm coming in the house. Oh, I'm reading it wrong because I'm like, wait, is she trying to say? So, I look right at my camera when I'm coming in the house. Yeah, I mean, I have multiple in my house too.
Mm-hmm.
And I know where they're at, and I probably eyeball them too.
When you're coming in your house?
Yeah, when I'm walking in, because they're
walking
motion
in.
sensor.
Oh, I misread it, Jamie.
See, I misread how she wrote it. What did you think it said?
Well, I know what it said, but I wanted you to read it, and I wanted to stay quiet. Then I'm going to snip it and put it everywhere that you said, I look right at my camera when I'm coming in my house.
Oh,
in your
you
house.
little... Hey, shame on you.
Shame on me. I didn't write it.
Shame on you.
Uli.
No. Okay, now it's coming. Okay. I got it. I got it. I get it now. I get it now. This is not... Oh my God.
A phone forensic investigation. Are there various screenshots that Kathy sent to, at least to Susan, maybe to the defendant as well, that basically said AT&T.com phone records with call history?
Yes.
You know the trial is boring
Now,
when I break down all of this.
In the Ring video footage, is it
believe
apparent
you.
sometimes that the defendant is walking around with his cell phone that his mom provided?
Yes.
And then that
Back
cell...
to the statement about that his mom provided, there's been no evidence.
Did his mom provide him a cell phone?
Object as to knowledge, foundation.
Well, he either knows or doesn't know.
You're going to lay the predicate.
Okay. Are you aware from your investigation that the defendant's mom provided him a cell phone?
Yes.
Now,
Objection to the foundation.
How did we have this discussion?
could you explain how you determine it?
Through the video, she has access to a cell phone and advised in numerous videos that she was cutting off his service.
But Judge, that still doesn't approach.
Oh. That was a good one, Julie.
Julie, why you just teed him up for that one?
She teed you up for that one.
Well, I fell for your trap. I knew I should have pre-read it before I read it, but when I read it wrong anyway. And I was like, oh, this seems fine.
Yeah, you can use this as a two-edged sword. She could monitor him because she gave him the phone, and she kept a tracker on him. Remember what trial was that where someone got accused of something with a tracker because of, Zachariah Anderson, who didn't even unpack the tracker. He was just apparently looking at something for his tools on Amazon, and that was enough for the state to prove that he had put trackers on. Why is IT moving around in court right now? Is it so we can finally see the evidence? But Zachariah Anderson, just because he had looked up some GPS trackers to put on his tool, he was a contractor. He was told, that's clear indication that you unalived your ex-wife's boyfriend who slept around with 2 other women. Because
Well, it was clear indication that he was tracking her, even though they found the tracker that he bought in his home unopened in a box, which was the stupidest part
Levine, if you would
of it all.
conduct a proffer.
Oh, we're having a proffer now.
You said to go ahead, Your Honor?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay.
And sorry, we're going to try to get him to fix that while we're doing this.
Oh yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Detective Peters, were you able to establish that you were mentioning earlier about your analysts can pull up the phone number and then see the corresponding who the phone provider is. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you had access to the defendant's phone number and to Kathy's phone number, correct?
Yes.
As it pertained to that.
Yes.
And were you able to determine who the provider was?
AT&T.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but before the break, what was it that you were answering, subject matter wise?
How I knew that Kathy had purchased the phone for him.
All right. I'm going to ask you some specific questions about that subject matter.
Okay.
Now, the judge has heard at a prior hearing earlier this month, but so the record's clear during this trial. Do you recall that there were 3 photographs that were sent from Kathy to her mother Susan that were related to this Jeffrey Rapkin text message between the defendant and Jeffrey Rapkin subject matter?
There were.
And was the date February 19th of 2023 that it showed up on Susan's phone?
Yes, that's the stamped date in her photographs.
And those photographs, were those photographs of what appeared to be the defendant's actual phone?
Yes.
And in order for that to happen, that would mean that Kathy would have had the defendant's actual phone and the phone was open, correct?
Correct.
So the defendant's cell phone screen was visible with the defendant's content open, correct?
Yes.
And in those 3 photographs, is it a fair statement that Kathy has taken a picture of the defendant's open cell phone?
Yes.
One of those photographs has to do with the subject matter that the judge heard middle of January as it pertains to the defendant talking about giving his mom the old knife to the neck from behind routine.
Correct.
Another one of those photographs has to do with Jeffrey Rapkin talking about how well versed in the law the defendant is, correct?
Correct.
And Jeffrey Rapkin addresses the defendant by saying his actual name, Collin, correct?
Yes.
On one or more occasions in those 2 text messages, correct?
Correct.
The third photograph that was also sent on that was also showed up on Susan's phone on that same February 19th of 2023 date was that another photograph of the defendant in text messaging Jeffrey Rapkin.
Yes.
And those 3 photographs had Jeffrey Rapkin's phone number at the top, correct? So it was clear I mean, the phone number that the defendant was communicating with was Jeffrey Rapkin's phone number, correct?
Right. The first one had his phone number, and then the other two had just Jeffrey Rapkin's name.
And when somebody initially calls someone, if they're not saved under a name, it'll be the phone number that they call them at, correct?
Correct.
Or text them at.
Correct.
And if someone takes the time to, over the course of a relationship, take the time to type in the person's name, it's still the same phone number, but now it'll be associated with just a printed name.
Right. You're an established contact at that point.
But other than the established contact, the phone number remained the same. It was Jeffrey Rapkin.
Yes.
And he and the defendant would communicate, and and Jeffrey Rapkin would say Collin a lot, like either Collin and then make a statement, or make a statement and say Collin, correct?
Yes.
Is it a fair statement that from the content, it was clear that it was the defendant and it was Jeffrey Rapkin?
Yes.
Communicating. Now, on one or more of those three photos I'm talking about here, what did you notice about where Kathy was when she took a picture of the defendant's open cell phone with the defendant's open visible screens with the text message at issue here?
Well, the last text messages I observed, it appeared her to be holding the phone, and then I could see past the cell phone in the background. It looked like her rug on the floor of her bedroom.
And you were able to actually visually see that rug, and correct?
Yes.
And you knew that from being at the house?
No, I knew that from observing the Ring video that was in her bedroom.
Now,
I don't know why we're getting all of this, where it's going to lead. It must be something very important since we have a proffer.
Was there multiple text messages, and we'll get into some specific references, but were there multiple text messages where the mom would be talking about turning off Collin's cell phone part of the plan?
Yes.
And that would be specifically related to his number on her plan, correct?
Yes.
Would she make that statement to the defendant sometimes?
Yes.
Would she make that statement to Susan sometimes?
Yes.
And did she make that statement then? And those were like in text message forms, correct?
Yes.
And she also made that statement to her, and Susan made that statement to a Charlotte County Sheriff's Office deputy on the night of the domestic violence battery, when they were explaining that. Were there also multiple occasions where she told the defendant through
Yes.
And she also made that statement to her, and Susan made that statement to a Charlotte County Sheriff's Office deputy on the night of the domestic violence battery, when they were explaining that the mom was telling Collin that she was going to be instilling some new parenting and was going to take away his cell phone privilege and his Xbox, correct?
Right. So I've read, yes.
Were there also multiple occasions where she told the defendant through text message and perhaps other forms too, that she was going to be changing his phone service so he could only receive phone calls and text messages?
Yes.
Were there multiple text messages where the mom and the defendant were talking, or the mom and her mom were talking about the defendant's phone service actually being off so that he would have to use Wi-Fi to try to use anything?
Yes.
Were there multiple text messages where the mom told the defendant to give her back the phone that she bought for him?
Yes.
That's the phone that he was using, correct?
Yes.
And that's the phone that was found in the defendant's car, correct?
Correct.
In addition to that, did the mom buy the defendant a MacBook for college courses?
Yes.
And could that MacBook, or was that MacBook mirrored with his cell phone?
You can do that, yes.
And when that happens, what happens?
Your text messages will display in your MacBook like they are in your cell phone.
The defendant at the whole time during this case was a juvenile, correct?
Yes.
And is it a fair statement that it's the mom's responsibility to supervise what he's doing?
Yes.
And it would be common and even encouraged for a mom to monitor and know what their child is looking at or doing on a cell phone?
Very common.
And in fact, the defendant was aware of that, correct?
Yes.
In terms of the mom's.
Where are we going with this?
I don't know.
It's yeah, and I want to know what love is, and I want to know
What?
what this mom. Well, I started saying, and then I popped in my head. I want to know what love is. What did she do for a living? MacBooks, cruises, Disney World, telephones, PlayStations, or Game Box. I think it was a Game Box, the superior system.
Xbox.
Is she loaded with the Cassiola?
I don't think
That's
so.
I don't know. Yeah, but do you get if you no, well, yeah, I don't. But they weren't married, so it would go to the son, not the mother.
Well, it would depend on who he
How does a
willed it to
dependent?
or whatever. Like, yeah, dependent.
But
'cause
they
if
were divorced, so probably not.
yeah. So sometimes people will give it
Xbox,
to their
not Game Box. Xbox.
spouse or
Yeah. Yeah, and she loved him enough that she punched him and gave him with the belt. But and another thing, is
and
it
this whole holding weights above his head and making him do these things or something else weird.
But that's punishment for him being a bad kid. I don't know. I never really I lost my right sometimes to leave the house, but I never had a beating or anything. But I did get sent to do certain activities like chop wood and stuff like that. If me and my brothers got into a fight, my dad would give me a cleaving axe, and I could go down and chop some wood instead of punishing my brother in the face. It's sometimes boys have a really good time using their bodies, but he's 17 years old at the time. And is it encouraged that they look on their cell phones? Yeah. But I'm not sure a 17-year-old's mom want to know what's on that boy's cell phone.
Yeah.
I could see it if he was 13.
But like, where are they going with this? Do you have any idea?
I have absolutely no idea where anything is going because the reason I left it sounded like someone had gotten stuck and was someone that visited a neighbor, and it's been raining, so they got the one tire out in the grass, and so I was laughing at them. And I'm the youngest. No, my sister is the youngest, but I'm the youngest of boys. My middle brother I was 5 when he found out I could beat him. Since then, he was more throwing things at me and not letting me get a hold of him because I was stronger.
I mean, that
Supervising.
was my punishment. It was just go to your room, and you're not allowed to like go hang out with friends for like a couple days. The normal stuff.
Holding up a heavy rock is 100% different to having to chop wood, in your opinion. Yeah, but again, it doesn't sound like this lady had any grasp on parenting. She probably went online, kind of like when young girls go to the gym and think, oh, donkey kicks gives me a big butt. No, it doesn't. Heavy squats, nothing else. Maybe some hip thrusters just to get a little stabilization on them. But she was just a shitty parent who didn't know how to raise her kids, so she thought, well, I'll make him march on it. It doesn't make. I have a hard time seeing where they're going with it because she wasn't a saint.
No, she had problems. So did he.
Yeah.
But I mean, you learn from your environment. Nobody seemed to be trying to get help. She didn't try to get help. He didn't try to get, like, I don't know. And then you get the, DCF involved, and nobody's helping anything.
No, and he was begging DCF to get out of there. And I think if you already have that bad of a relationship, and then I'm gonna see your phone, I'm gonna control everything. You better be here by this time tomorrow. Constantly trying to control his life. Had it been, let's switch this around. This is Jamie and I. and in our loving relationship. And she says, I want to have your phone because I want to track you, want to know what you're watching online. Everyone would say that's kind of creepy. And this is a 17-year-old boy. We're not talking about a 12-year-old who accidentally found that place that every boy knows, where everyone knows your name. I think there's a very big difference between monitoring online behavior, and I know the cultural norms are different in the States and in Denmark, but still, a 17-year-old is different.
And I think it's hard for me to, because the way she's going about things is like, she's not establishing, from what we've been hearing so far, like that she's stable in any way to actually give him a stable home and try to like start implementing these things. Like she's a little off the rails as it is, and then she's trying to implement all this discipline when she hasn't been doing it this whole time, from what we're hearing. And it's like, how do you expect consistency in anything? It's so,
because
it's so
here's
messy.
Here's a MacBook. Go march in place. Here's a telephone. Hold this rock up. It's yeah.
The defendant in many or all aspects of his life, was the defendant aware of that? Not talking about the phone specifically, but other, like the Ring camera footage, her parenting him, her providing the phone for him. Was the defendant aware of those things?
Yes.
On September 7th and 8th, in the Ring videos in the house, the defendant, he has a cell phone in a black case, correct?
Yes.
Which appears to be the same cell phone in the black case that was found in the defendant's car on September 8th, correct?
It appears to be, yes.
Which appears to be the same cell phone in the same black case in the photographs that Kathy took of the defendant's cell phone when it was open and in her possession, correct?
It appears to be, yeah.
And that has to do with the old knife to the neck from behind text message, correct?
Yes.
And there's approximately 35 pages of a Cellbrite report where the defendant is texting with Jeffrey Rapkin about different subject matter, correct?
Yes.
This guy.
On pages 3 to 4 of that, the defendant texts to Jeffrey Rapkin, "This is Collin, I am 17, correct?"
Yes.
And did it appear that the mom actually had the ability and did turn off the defendant's phone and control the service?
Yes.
And when mom had the defendant's phone and it was open, it's quite clear that the phone was open, so she didn't need to do anything, correct?
Correct.
And if it's her phone, she can do whatever she wants with it in terms of getting into it or using it, correct?
Yeah, sure.
From the defendant's phone, did you find a conversation with his mom on September 7th, 2:15 p.m. when she said, "Please return my cell phone and MacBook that were purchased for your education"?
Yes.
On page.
This is also some. Have any of you, especially ladies, have you ever had a mom who kind of did that emotional thing with you? Where, well, I was just doing it for you, but if it's not good enough, then I'm a bad mom. And then you have to say, no, you're the best mom ever. Why don't you ever visit anymore? I just want to see my grandkids. Because there's 5 hours drive and you can just come over here. We have a spare guest room. Yeah, but I don't like driving. Yeah, guilt trips galore. I know it from close to me where every time they went to see their mom, it was, oh yeah, well, you're here finally. It's been such a long time. Yeah, well, I'm not going to come more if every time I'm seeing you, it's guilt. It's, yeah, it's just emotional manipulation.
No, it is. And I mean, I think they were both doing this to each other, and also, but like, he learns it from his mother.
Yeah. And again, I don't blame the mom for him unaliving her. Absolutely not. I just think she was incapable of being a mom. And I think CPS screwed up when they put probably this kid.
Yeah.
He sat wrong on the potty when he was potty trained. But they put him in a house with a mom who probably also is very emotional stunted. She was a mom or knocked up at 13. That's weird. I reckon you grew up in a Danish heck hole. I grew up in a poor Danish household. 4 kids, 2 parents. One of them was a public servant, and the other one was a firefighter. I didn't have food till I was 5 years old, and that was because I finally was big enough to get over the snow. But what do kids know about hardship these days?
One of the text messages between the defendant and his mom, did the Miss Griffith text him, "I'm turning the phone off"?
Yes.
And I understand you might not remember the pages and whatnot, but
I remember the text message.
Okay, I'm mentioning these page numbers based on what I saw. On page 4 of 8, did the mom text her son, "Your phone service is disconnected"?
Yes.
On page 8, did the mom text her son, "You have 5 minutes before I deactivate your cell phone"?
Yes.
On page 1 of
that's the Lori, not Lori Dable. It's the two where the mom. I mentioned them earlier, where she was filming them for her YouTube channel. She was constantly berating them and belittling them, making them sleep on the floor, and then when she left her husband and moved in with Jody Hildebrand, she let them. They locked the boy up because they accused him of online stuff and touching his sister, and that was a horrible case. I'm glad they pled guilty, so we didn't have to listen to that.
29, did mom text the defendant, "I'm turning the phone off after this. Please return my cell phone and MacBook"?
Yes.
And regardless if she was going to follow through with her threats, the defendant obviously knew who controlled the cell phone, correct?
It's the same place.
Judge, I'm going to object to that statement because there's a difference between the service.
Arizona
and
is Kerry Richards. That's right.
On page 1 of 29, Kathy texted him, "I can see everything you're doing from your phone. Try calling Detective Lacey again or my mom." Is that correct?
Yes.
On page 14 of 29, the mom again says, "Your phone service is being turned off." Correct?
Yes.
On page 5 of 29, the mom texts her son, "Closing your BOA account." I don't remember if it said BOA or Bank of America.
BOA.
Okay. Indicating that she had a joint custody or joint control of his account since he was a minor, correct?
Or access to it.
Or what?
Or access to it, yes.
Access to it, okay. So that's another indication of something she had access to besides his phone?
Yes.
Page, I don't remember if I just said this, but page 14 of 29, your phone service is being turned off. Another statement
she said that multiple times.
Okay. Page 16 of 29, "I'm still tracking you and your location, Collin. If I don't see your dot moving on a map towards home," and then whatever else she said.
Yes.
Indicating that she's able to track him through the phone that she so graciously provided.
Yes.
17 of 29, "You are reading each message I send. I keep seeing read next to each text I send. I'm shutting your service off."
Yes.
Page 18 of 29, I'm looking at your phone records, correct?
Yes.
Page 22 of 29, your call records with AT&T, you didn't even attempt to call Monique.
Yes.
And then is it a fair statement that Kathy attaches ATT.com screenshot of the records/phone calls for September 6th through September 8th of 2024 that the defendant was either making or not making?
I do remember seeing that, yes.
Page 24 of 29, continuing with the text message conversation between the mom and the defendant. "And you are at her house on Wi-Fi because your service is disconnected." Do you remember that?
Yes.
Page 23 of the Cellbrite report from the conversation between now Kathy and Susan Detman, her mother. Do you recall Kathy saying, "Collin's phone will not be turned back on given that he lost his phone privilege when he hung up on me"?
Yes.
Oh, goodness.
Coming in the home stretch. Page 29 to 30, the same Cellbrite report. Do you recall mom sending Susan Detman screenshots of the defendant playing video games, kidnapping and killing people?
Yes.
The mom was monitoring what the defendant was doing in various aspects of his life.
Right.
And is it a fair statement? Didn't she also text the defendant, "I can see what you're doing playing the video games"?
Yes, she said it on the Ring camera as well.
Okay, so that's
Are we really
captured
blaming
there as
video
well?
games? Stop it.
Yeah, always blame video games.
Yeah.
During your investigation and your interview of Robert Willantis on page 7 of 16 on one of the two interviews, Robert Willantis told you Kathy did get Collin a phone. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Page 3 of Amanda Friends' 6-page report, she annotated that the mom took the defendant's phone away And the defendant also told his dad that his mom took his phone away.
Yes.
Page 306 of Amanda Friend's former DCF CPI investigators noted or commented that mom took Collin's phone away.
Yeah.
Is it true that the mom would take away the defendant's cell phone and AirPods as punishment for being disrespectful to her?
It appeared that way, yeah.
And from your review of Deputy Alexander Sharp from the Charlotte County Sheriff's Office, who he actually testified today, page 4 of 6 in his report, he indicated that the mom told Deputy Sharp she was telling defendant she will be making changes to his phone so that he will only be able to make phone calls and send/receive texts.
Yes.
Is there any other information or evidence that you have to show about the inquiry of that the mom provided the defendant his cell phone and the defendant was aware of the monitoring that pertains to, obviously the whole relevance of this is the defendant sending Jeffrey Rapp in the text about giving his mom the old knife to the neck from behind routine if she comes up with a gun or something like that.
Right. Just everything we've gone over.
Okay. Judge,
I would do to my mom if she came up with a gun. That's way different than I'm just gonna give her the old knife to the throat routine.
Yeah.
If you put in the context, if she comes up with a gun, that's that. I'm starting to. I think I might be changing my mind, Jamie.
Well, no, it's just she seems so immature. He seems so immature. Like it's just such a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
But
two nukes in the same house and no one has the fuse. Well, they do have the fuse, but no one has the disarmament codes. It's yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing further for the proctor.
Hey.
Detective Peters,
Let's start with the photo of the phone that appears to be the defendant's phone because it's an iPhone in a black case, right?
Yes.
But you didn't look at a serial number. That's not in the picture, right?
Yeah, through the photograph? No, ma'am.
Right. And there's no other distinguishing marks that indicate that it is the same phone that you collected later that belonged to Collin.
Other than it's very similar in size and the case.
You know how many of those kinds of phones have been sold?
Countless.
Yeah. Okay. So you also mentioned that the phone was obviously open when somebody took a picture of it.
Yes.
But you don't know how it got open, do you?
No, ma'am.
You don't know if Collin was asleep and mom crept in and took the phone from his room to take that picture, right?
No, ma'am.
And you don't know if it was password protected, but she somehow figured out his password against his wishes.
I don't know that, no.
When Kathy texted all these things on September 7th and September 8th about cutting Collin's cell phone service off, she was referring to the AT&T service, correct? At least so far as you know.
Yes, yeah, I would assume, yes.
And Mr. Levine has pointed out throughout the trial that minors cannot open an AT&T account on their own. Are you aware that that's true or not?
From my understanding and experience, yes.
Okay. But does Kathy opening an account for Collin prove that she had allowed access to every personal thing on the phone?
I don't know the circumstances in that household. I can tell you I have the same service with my children, and I do have access to all of their stuff.
Right. And you can agree that some families are more privacy oriented and some are not, right?
I don't know. Based on age, I would say no.
Do you know of any families whose parents don't go through their kids' text messages?
No.
Really?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to testify right now that I never went through my son's text messages.
I never.
At any rate, you said that the photo
I
of
never had my parents go through mine either, but I didn't get a cell phone until I was like 18 because I'm old. But
My daughters, they had my oldest daughter when they were 12 and 13. They had a chick taking pictures in the girls' locker room and sending it to the boys. It's just fun. And we had a very, very, very long talk about what you do and what you don't do. And I told them everything you'll send is forever and everyone sees it. So not even if you love him. And I trust that my kids are smart enough. If there's any problems, they can always come to me and we'll figure it out. But
Yeah.
I
I
never
feel like if you
believed.
see something's wrong, you might ask about it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I never felt the need to ever check on my kids or anything. I always told them, my phone is open, you call me, I'll pick you up. And remember, in Denmark, they start drinking when they're like 15, 16 years old. I've driven in the middle of the night to pick up my girls to make sure they came home safe, but I would never, ever track them or anything. They knew they could always call me, and I showed them the respect of not rummaging through their private lives. No, I'm not going to say that.
Actually, never mind about that. The text message from Kathy saying, give me the phone and MacBook that I bought for your education back. You have no idea where the funds for those things came from, do you?
No,
You're aware that Collin had a trust as a result of the probate from Oklahoma, right?
I am aware, yes.
And that was the source of almost everything that Kathy provided for him of substance.
I don't know that.
Okay. You saw texts between Kathy and Susan regarding getting Shelley, the lawyer in Oklahoma, to
Correct.
send money to an account to pay for things, right?
Yes.
Right. Including for the computer that she was supposedly going to buy. They were talking about how much it costed and that they needed to get the money from Shelley.
Yes, ma'am.
So the mom didn't buy it.
So for all you know, that phone was bought with money from Collin's personal trust.
I can't testify to that because I don't know how it was purchased.
And you're aware that Kathy made things up all the time.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yes,
including from the text messages around the same date and time that you were just discussing.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't have any other questions.
So now you're going to go up there and say, oh, she bought all of these things. No, she paid for it with his personal trust. So it was his dad's inheritance. Jamie, I hate this prosecutor now.
Well, it's so you're lying to us. Why are we having to hear this stuff from the defense?
Yeah.
Like, just be upfront. Then it looks crazy every time she comes up there and she's like, well, actually.
Yeah, because now the jury is going to hear that. And do you want the jury to find out that you're pulling the wool over their eyes?
Yeah.
Jamie.
I can read the text message that Your Honor has seen at the prior hearing into the record. It's very short. And for the record, it will be, if Your Honor rules that.
Why don't you hear those again?
What's that?
You're talking about the actual text from Collin and Mr. Rafkin?
Allegedly.
Yes, Your Honor. I
don't need to hear those for purposes of the proffer.
Okay.
The proffer was to determine this preliminary issue.
Okay.
But Ms. Thornhill, it occurs to me in this hearing, we're focusing a lot on who pays for the phone or where the source of the funds for the phone. The real question, the basic question, is whether your client knew or should have known under these circumstances that what was in his phone will stay in his phone and would not be accessible to anyone. And what I'm looking at here is what appears to be, that the Griffith household looked like a surveillance state to me, and she was definitely surveilling everything he did, not just actually, but constantly on his back about what he's doing, what he's not doing. A parent has a right, even if the object is purchased by the child and owned by the child, stolen by the child, whatever it is by the child, to examine those items. A child doesn't have that kind of right to privacy. The child has a right to confidential communications with his lawyer.
Right.
But under these circumstances, could I actually say, even if she hacked into his phone, knowing what he knows about his mother, that he had no reason to think she might go snooping in his phone, especially given the animosity is not the right word, but the tumultuous relationship that he had with her and the heavy hand that she had on his shoulder.
Judge, I don't think there's any proof one way or the other. And
so he should have stopped her from snooping.
The attorney-client privilege, which is presumed. And while I agree, ring cameras in every room, there's still nothing other than these text messages from months later that are not between lawyers and clients saying, I'm watching what you're doing. And then after she said that, I don't remember if it was this time or another time, he blocked her to prevent her from looking. So that to me
I
says
haven't
that,
heard that evidence.
I thought I presented it at the hearing.
Can you really block your parent and they can just take
Yeah.
the phone?
Yeah, you can.
Except if he's with.
What legal significance is a child blocking their parent when
I
it
don't
comes to the parent's right to inspect the contents of their child's possessions?
But and I don't even concede that there is a right to inspect private communications.
A parent?
Does that?
You don't think, I know you've chosen that route. I might be somewhere in the middle, because I do think it's important to let your child have some privacy, but it's also important to know what your child is doing. But the bottom line is, what matters is what the law says. Are you telling me that the law affords a child some right against unreasonable search and seizure by their parent? Just leave attorney-client privilege aside. But I come home with some object that they didn't provide to me. They don't have a right to come in my room, look at it, see what it is, open it up, read it if there's something inside.
Well, Judge, I think that cell phones are innately different. And I don't have the case sites for all of the Supreme Court decisions talking about how uniquely private cell phones are.
Children's cell phones, you have
Children have a right to privacy.
from their parents?
Yes,
Show me
I
the
believe
case.
they do. I don't have one right now.
I mean,
Oh, yeah, okay. Mr. Hendry is dead on, and because he's practiced family law and I haven't, but even in family law cases and custody cases, sometimes parents are actually explicitly banned from looking at communications between their own child and the other parent.
But that, Mr. Hendry, I think has to do more, I mean, at that point, a court has intervened because there's an issue that needs to be resolved regarding the best interest of a child. And those orders are typically not put in place unless you have parents who are interfering with the other parent's time sharing and rights to the child. So that's not so much to protect the child per se, it's to protect the relationship between that child and that parent, to prevent the other parent from interfering. That, I don't think that's the same.
But Judge, isn't the relationship between a client and their attorney sacrosanct?
That's the second question. The first question, I mean, it's analogous to talking at the restaurant to your lawyer at a volume where someone else can hear. You knew or should have known someone else would hear that. It's today's version of that. If you're texting under circumstances where you knew or should have known, someone else is going to read that.
And that's where I think we differ. I don't think that Collin knew or should have known his mom would be reading messages between him and his lawyer. No.
I think that is
I think that's reasonable.
absolutely been shown in this case that that is exactly the type of person that she is. But you're
well, yeah.
Yeah, but that shouldn't make his right to privacy or confidentiality with his lawyer just. It's not his fault the door is open. It's his mom who is dead, and now we can just throw the confidentiality between him and his lawyer out because he should have known his mom would be snooping in his phone.
Mm-hmm.
This so if I break the law, it's okay to use that against Jamie. So she can lose her rights. That's stupid.
Yeah.
It's
And kind
no,
of the
the
argument
judge
with,
is arguing that he should have known. The judge,
Yeah.
not the lawyer. The lawyer is the female.
she said Collin shouldn't like it. He's not like
He doesn't lose
how would
his
he?
confidentiality because his mom was a snoop. How was he
Yeah.
supposed to know that? Well, it's the same as talking in a restaurant. Absolutely not.
Yeah, and she said, "How is he supposed to know that?" And he's like, "Well, it's been shown that she's absolutely the type of person that would do that, so he should have known."
Yeah, and
I don't
how
really
how
think-
much? So he can only use carrier pigeon to communicate with his attorney, or either the right to privacy in your communications with your lawyer is a right to privacy, even if you are 15. Think, what if the lawsuit has been about him? I don't know what's the legal term for divorcing your parents. Should the mom also be emancipation? Should the mom also have a right to override client lawyer privilege, just because Yeah, she was a snoop.
Mm-hmm. And if he bought the phone himself and he like, I don't know, it's just, I know there's laws or whatever, and people believe you still have a right to your child until they're 18, but it's like he's so close to being an adult. And if he bought the phone himself with his own money,
Yeah,
like, back off.
yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
That's
he couldn't figure out the phone either.
I mean, when they're a child, yes, of course. You have the right to inspect their stuff.
You're telling me there's a
Okay.
case that says a child just blanket has this right to privacy as against their parent.
Not a blanket right, Judge. We're talking about very specific circumstances where she is the alleged victim in the case. And this lawyer was hired by his grandmother to represent him in a case against his mother. So
No, she shouldn't, because your conversations with your lawyer is private. You're not privy to your opponent's conversations with her lawyer. If it was evidence or anything, yeah, you're privy to that, but you're not privy to communications between the lawyer and the client. That's a very, very, very sacrosanct thing. We have even seen it in cases has been thrown out because people have access. We see it in multiple trials.
even if she is someone who looks in his phone now and then, Collin had every right to expect that the communications that were privileged between him and the lawyer that is representing him against his mother, that those would be protected. And I don't know how much more simply I can say it. I think we're making a mockery of the attorney-client privilege if you allow this in, but I understand that that's your ruling. I don't think the state has established the ownership and control to the extent that she could invade, and he should expect that she could invade his.
Well, it's sort of receding from that because it's occurring to me during this hearing that I think parents have those rights as against their child, even if it's not their property.
Yeah, why didn't a 17-year-old kid know the law? Come on now.
If she's the victim, so that's like saying.
But that's a double-edged sword. I mean, you have to take this in the context in which it's arisen, which is he lived in a surveillance state with his mother.
Therefore, he doesn't get to have.
No, therefore he gets to walk down the block, take a jog, call his lawyer, or she can't hear it. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, well, we obviously disagree. I don't think this is the same as speaking.
Let's just turn that around. I'm in prison where everything is surveilled. Do I have the right to call my attorney without being monitored? Yes, I do.
Yeah.
But if you live in a house that is just as surveilled as the prison, no, it's fine. You don't have the rights. Marissa, you're going to call court now. This can't go on. If these are well-established rights that people have in communications with their lawyer, it's one of the most sacrosanct things in the American system. But because he could just have walked out, no, he couldn't leave the house. He was living in a surveillance state. Yeah, but he should just have walked down the street.
Speaking in a loud voice in a public restaurant. I think that there was an expectation of privacy and privilege that the state has not overcome, but I don't think there's much more argument to be made about it. Sorry.
You can say I hate it with a passion.
The circumstances where we're operating.
Unbridled.
He has no right to make a phone call when he's home, but his mother also controls all of his assets and all of his belongings. How is he? I mean, we can set the hypothetical where he goes on a jog and makes a call, but if we're also conceding that a mother has the access to turn off his account, how does he ever get a confidential communication if he's a child? He's stuck inside of his home with his mother controlling every aspect of that life. And then we're to say, well, anything he does inside of that home cannot be confidential because he's in the home and he knows that it can't be confidential. Then we just become, it's a circle where we're never allowing Mr. Griffith any privacy.
And he would have to rely on his mother to take him to the office of Mr. Griffith.
He could make a call in his room under these circumstances. She had a Ring camera in his room, which would be an invasion of privacy.
And I didn't realize that there was a Ring camera in his room because I haven't gotten any footage from that.
Oh.
I thought we just had the kitchen and the living room. And the doorbell, sorry. it was clear from one of the body camera footage things that it says something you can tell she has a ring.
So, Mr. Levine, what I'm hearing is
Put one in his room too.
I'm looking at this in two
So we have a Richardson,
narrow,
not a
with too
Richardson,
narrow
Brady
of a
violation too.
view that what is a child to do in the circumstance where confidential communications with their lawyer either happen at the whim of the parent or not.
They don't judge. Your decision, and obviously you make the decision, but where you were headed and what you were saying makes complete sense. I haven't said a word over here. The more the defense just keeps talking doesn't mean they're making more of a point. You shouldn't change where it appears you were going to, because you're supported by the law, you're supported by the facts, the proffer, the law, and what you've been saying it justifies you.
It doesn't change the rule of the law.
You're undecided yourself. The first thing, he wasn't held as a prisoner. This guy went out all the time. He could go wherever he wanted to. He had his phone all the time. His mom, despite all these threats, very seldom did she ever cut his phone off or turn off his service. So he could do whatever he wanted to, whenever he wanted to. It's ironic because on the day when he ended up leaving the house, he was too lazy and
We are discussing if you have the right to communicate with your attorney or no. You don't have it because you're underage. So even though you're suing your parents, you don't have the right to confidentiality, and you're a bad guy. So of course your rights under the Fourth Amendment is bunk, because this is what the circle guy thinks to believe.
Respectful to do some simple chores because he wanted to go take his walk, which is exactly what he did. So he could have done that at any time. Another thing that I didn't mention, but I did mention at the hearing, is that so I think you're spot on. I think the evidence is spot on. My arguments and the evidence as presented would justify you allowing this in. To do anything to the contrary.
I love a lawyer who argues with, I know my arguments are spot on. Jamie, I'm always right. I know that. So next time you don't think that, no, you're wrong, because I'm always right.
To go completely against what your gut instinct and the evidence has shown. Furthermore, one of the things.
If you're in an abusive relationship and you want to call your lawyer to get an RO on your husband, you should expect that he beats you up after, because he have every right to go through your phone. He bought it for you. He put it in his name. You take the beating, because you should have expected you calling your lawyer, maybe calling 911 is something that could enrage him. Come on now, let's put all the... I hate this attorney, Jamie. I'll need a bio break.
I mentioned at the hearing was, it sounds like, the attorney's making the argument for the defendant. And of course she has the right and she should do that. But what I cited some of the case law.
We are not arguing about he's justified in killing her. We are arguing about if they are allowed to bring in evidence obtained in a snitchy little way. And who's that here? It doesn't matter. Your right stays the same until you're proven guilty.
Some of the propositions are, it's what was the defendant's intention
Jesus,
and belief
Brandon.
about if this is one of many things. This is just another thing that would support you allowing this in. But one of the things is, what is the individual's belief or thought process when they're having a conversation with an attorney? And you have to look at that through the individual, not some educated attorney who's been practicing law for decades and legal arguments and things that they're making and how their mind works as a seasoned attorney. But you have to look at it from the defendant, a 16-year-old who's talking about giving his mom the old knife to the neck from behind, which is how he killed her. When he's having a conversation with Jeffrey Ratkin, he's not sitting there thinking, oh my God, this is definitely going to be protected as the attorney-client privilege. No one's ever going to see that. He could care less about that. What he was thinking was getting information from his attorney and what he might do in the future, which was he would be happy when he had the chance to kill his mom and set it up, just like he did the same thing with his dad. But when he sent that text, I guarantee you, when I would say the evidence supports this, and it's one of the considerations you should make, that Collin Griffith, the 16-year-old or 17-year-old, wasn't even considering the attorney-client privilege and wasn't thinking this will be protected, nobody will see this. So that just goes to support what Your Honor should do, which is allow that to come in. There's nothing more humanly possible I can do.
Well, you're asking me to let it in under crime fraud exception. No, and we've talked about that.
I don't. You've already addressed that.
That is much less clear in this case.
That's not what I'm asking to let it in under, because you've already made that ruling. That should say a long time ago.
I mean, it is. I cannot say to a level of that you've shown to the required level preliminarily that the crime fraud exception applies based on the context in which this lawyer was representing him and what appears to be eerie, and we've all recognized that, appears to be a discussion about what can I do to protect myself.
No, and the way I'm thinking about it, you've already made that ruling last time, so I'm not arguing that today, but what I'm saying is you can and should consider it in terms of when he's making this text to his attorney, he is not thinking, Collin Griffith, the 16 or 17-year-old, is not thinking this will be protected by the attorney-client privilege. I feel safe in doing this. Whereas if Ms. Thornhill or Mr. Henry wrote the same text or a text like that, then their adult, intelligent, educated minds would be thinking about this would be protected. But you have to look at it through the defendant's point of view, and the last thing on his mind was the attorney-client privilege.
Thornhill, Mr. Henry.
Under that logic, then we're providing less protection to a child for attorney-client privilege because they're less sophisticated and less smart than an adult. That goes contrary to the law. That goes contrary to how we treat children in this justice system. We give them more protection and we give them more leeway. To say that they're not sophisticated enough for an attorney-client privilege is wrong.
I'm not persuaded by that, but I mean, I think there's probably a lot of adults that's not what goes through their mind when they're talking to their lawyer, and typically lawyers will tell their clients what you tell me is confidential. But Mr. Levine, all right, we're going to take 5 minutes.
All right.
yes, let's just assume that he in the be seated. Losing my voice, so just a moment. All right, we're back back on the record. Mr. Griffith is present with both of his lawyers. Mr. Levine is here for the state. You know, there's a bigger question here that I don't know if there's any law on that occurs to me based on the arguments made by the defense, aside from the more specific question of what the defendant knew or should have known. And the question in my mind is, does a parent, in the context of the attorney-client privilege, or just the attorney-client relationship of their child and the child's lawyer, have some obligation to facilitate attorney-client privilege communications? Meaning, yes, let's just assume that he had some expectation of privacy. Well, strike that. You have said, how is he supposed to communicate with his lawyer if mom can take the phone away? I guess my question to you is, does she have to facilitate it? Is that part of my analysis, that children should have a right to use property that their parents would otherwise have every right in the world? I mean, they could bring a locked chest home and the parent could cut the lock off if you ask me to see what's inside. That's different. Once that relationship has commenced or is in action, the lawyer can prevent that.
Judge, 35
But
pages of text messages with the defendant had no problem communicating. He didn't need any help from anyone over many, many months. Kind of proving that he had no problem getting to talk to his attorney or seeing his attorney, and Susan would have taken him there.
I think you're missing my question. The communication we're talking about here occurred on a telephone. And so, is that what you're saying, Ms. Thornhill? That I want to get this right, and you're telling me children should be allowed to talk to their lawyers on their phones without having been found to, and imputed knowledge that their parents can get in there and see what they're saying. You're asking me to rule that way.
Yes.
And would that be a contrary to
That she admitted that she unalived herself, that tried to unalive herself, that she brandished a weapon on him. That's that she threatened to take away his belongings. I think that's why we are believing that.
all that we discussed at the last hearing, and then what the court is supposed to.
Because it was self-defense when his dad died, so he got the inheritance.
Analyze in terms of what we've been discussing about.
No one showed me a case about a cell phone and a parent's right to look in there even when and to use otherwise confidential communications. What would be a confidential communication if you were an adult?
But as it pertains to the defendant having no thought process that would even be confidential. And the analogy that Your Honor was talking a little bit about today, but we talked much more in depth about at the hearing, about if you send an email on a company computer, even if it has to do with lawyer-client privilege, and I cited a case, I don't remember the case, but I cited a case.
What's different is that person is an adult and has other means of communicating. This person's means of communicating with his lawyer was a cell phone.
He wasn't locked in a cage, Judge. He was at Susan Detman's house all the time. He was using that cell phone as much as he wanted. His mom made a million threats, but never followed through basically on any of them. He's running around and doing his walks. He was not held captive. He had almost like an adult. He could do whatever he wanted to. He had a driver's license. Susan Detman would
Not
take
when
him.
he said that.
All right, fair enough. I didn't remember that. Susan Detman could take him.
Oh, you didn't remember that, or you
I was thinking about the 35 pages of
didn't
text
remember
messages. Time-wise, like he had his phone and was using it anytime he wanted to. So it wasn't like he didn't have the opportunity. And I don't think that inquiry that Your Honor is talking about most recently changes it one way or another, unless there's some case, which none of us have seen a case that would support what the defense is arguing, case law-wise. So I think I understand that question might be interesting to Your Honor, but that shouldn't change your mind.
Yes, if the mom had any money, but yeah, if they don't find him guilty, then he's free. That's the beauty about the criminal justice system. If you're not guilty, you're innocent. Well, you're found not guilty, But and then he would have all the rights that any normal person have.
Well, I'm kind of thinking just the hypothetical circumstance. Suppose you have a child who
Yes.
has no other way to talk to their lawyer
But you don't have to worry about it. That's not the
other than on
situation.
a cell phone. Well, I think that's the starting point. What do you do in that situation? Does the parent have an obligation to provide a means of confidential communications with their lawyer?
And it's clear that that question could be interesting, and it's definitely interesting to you, and I know you want to make the right decision, but that's not the situation that the defendant was in. And when you analyze that thought
Yes, 2 police officers has testified to it.
that you have, but under the defendant's situation, he's not in a situation like a hypothetical teenager might be.
I appreciate that you think I think certain
1 police officer and that weird hybrid DSF police officer lady.
things are
Yeah, she
interesting,
said she
but irrelevant.
tried to
It's
unalive herself
more than
multiple
interesting.
times. She was taking she had overdosed on pills. She drank. They even admitted to her, the agent even said that she was very manipulative and she was known to lie. I mean, there was a lot of stuff.
She gave her the firearm that she had brandished at
Oh, yep.
Collin, even though she lied about it, saying she didn't have a firearm. So multiple
then she
people have
admitted to it.
testified to it so far.
Yeah.
To me, it is, I think, the fundamental starting point, and then we break it down from there.
I hope there's some mental professional who's going to come in and testify about his mental acuity. Is that what you call it? And yes, if he's found guilty, I too would hope that you had some kind of like we have where they can go where they will be treated.
You can't answer the question though.
Yes.
Is that correct? Does a parent have an obligation? Does a parent have an obligation to facilitate, not this defendant, just as a matter of general principle, does a parent have an obligation to facilitate confidential communications between their child and their lawyer?
I haven't seen a case that says that, but by the same token, a parent could do or not do anything they want to. So if they want to be a bad parent and just not help their child in any way, shape, or form, there's no law that I'm aware of that would require a parent to get the child an attorney, or to get the child to an attorney's office, or to help the child in any way, shape, or form. As we've seen with a bunch of deadbeat parents who don't do anything, not in this case, but just in general. A parent could sit back and be completely uninterested in their child's life, and that might not be against the law in the context that you're asking about if they have an obligation or a legal requirement to help their child have confidential talks with their attorney. So I would say no. I don't believe that there's a legal requirement. I certainly haven't seen a case law, and if there's some legal precedent to the contrary, I would learn something new if that was the case.
You've worked in juvenile. I've never sat in juvenile, but do you know? I mean, I know the parents are, I don't want to say parties down there in criminal cases, but they're always called up to the podium. They're always asked questions, and I think the judge has some jurisdiction over them.
Well, it's the duty of the parents to make sure their child gets to court to deal with any criminal charges, like delinquency charges. I don't know that any of our judges have ever punished a parent for not bringing their child to court. So I think there is an obligation of a parent to at least not impede, and concurrent with that, not impeding should also be respecting the attorney-client privilege. Like I mentioned this at the hearing. If I'm meeting a client in the lobby of the public defender's office, a child, and I do that all the time, and a parent says, he's a minor, I've got to come in there with him. I explain to them that no, you don't. Anything that I say to your client, to your child, and the child says to me is confidential and protected. The minute I let a third party into that, it waives the privilege. 99 times out of 100, the parent stays in the lobby, and then that 100th time, I say that I can't talk to your client. To your child. Sorry, I'm getting client and child mixed up. So I don't see how you can recognize that a child does have the attorney-client privilege, the protections that
Well,
exist.
that's interesting. In that 100th case, then you are recognizing some superior right of the parent to say no.
No,
you're not going to have confidential communications with my child because you say I'm not going to talk to your child.
No, what I say, and it doesn't usually last longer than this one visit, I say, I can't talk with your child about the case in the way that I need to be effective with you present. I will be
So
happy.
you're not ceding to them. You're just
No.
saying, we're not going to do this here.
Yeah, and I also explained to them that I will be happy to answer the questions that I can answer after I've talked with them privately. I don't know how else other to say.
Yeah, there were allegedly 4 cameras, 1 in each bedroom as well. The judge even called it a surveillance state.
Then a child had, well, the case law does, I provided that case that talks about children have the attorney-client privilege. It's not superseded by their parents or somebody saying, we need to know where this child is right now. Attorney, tell us where the child is.
I'm not disputing the child doesn't have the right or the privilege. So can you respond to Mr. Levine's suggestion that we're talking about Collin Griffith,
Right.
who had other means, had a car,
He didn't have a car at that point,
had a grandmother,
who lived in another county.
who he had a relationship with, though, correct? A
Absolutely.
positive relationship.
Absolutely.
And-
But if he's got a lawyer who says, I am your lawyer, I work for you, anytime we talk, it's confidential because the lawyer also doesn't know that Kathy maybe is intrusive and hacks accounts and things, and assures Collin.
Well, I don't have that evidence of what the lawyer told him.
You don't have a lot of the evidence that Mr. Levine is talking about either, the claims he makes, and yet the privilege exists, and it's their burden to overcome the presumption of that privilege. I don't know how else to answer the question. If Mr. Levine is trying to say that Collin Griffith knew that this was not a privileged conversation, like he specifically did it knowing his mom was going to look at it, I think that's absurd, and he hasn't established that.
I don't know that I would agree under the circumstances I've heard about this relationship that it's he would have no reason to think his mom wouldn't be snooping around. I don't know that I necessarily.
Yeah, but you have to remember, Nanya, he's not found guilty. It doesn't matter that we find he's probably a bad egg. Laws are laws, and the right you have, because if you can take his rights away just because he self-defended himself, can Jamie take your rights away just because you don't like Tupperware? No. He has the rights everyone has until he's found guilty. He's not found guilty. He's probably pretty psychotic, and I didn't want him in my house, but the law's the law. And we have, even for the bad eggs, they have the same rights as the good eggs.
Necessarily agree with that, but Mr. Hendry, you've risen. Do you need to be heard?
The thought occurs that if we're dealing in these hypotheticals, if there was not this screenshot, if they have Collin's phone, Collin is a child, mother has access to this phone.
Maybe, but this is an argument about is it legal or not to waive his client lawyer. Why can't I say that word? His privilege of secrecy with his lawyer.
Yeah.
Just because the mom was afraid of him. I could, at the same way, assert when Jamie and Iris comes to Denmark, I'm afraid they're going to do something to me, and I need to put an air tag on them. Do I have the right to do it?
No.
I think you have to isolate out that this kid isn't found guilty in unaliving his dad. And still, this mom, every time he tries to get away and go to live with his grandmother, she's the one who forces him back.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jamie will fight for her Tupperware.
They've done a Cellbrite download of this phone. Well, the message exists on the phone. He doesn't have confidential communications because somebody else has access to that device, but they have just gotten it in without the mom. I mean,
I think there are some cases that talk about.
I don't think America is part of right of child. I think it's UN.
I think it's what's in the mind of your client that's important in terms of whether he knew or should have known that another person would have access to it.
But if the access was the same, if mom hadn't actually taken that picture, but he knew that she had access to that phone, even if she hadn't taken that screenshot, would that still not be a confidential communication? Are we saying that anything that happens on those devices for children, they can never be confidential?
Well, that's the question I'm asking.
I just don't think that. I think that's an unreasonable position to take in 2025 when the bulk of communication happens not face to face. There's nothing that supports the state's position that I'm aware of that the phone cannot be confidential. The only thing that seems to be unique in this case is that somebody took a screenshot of a device and then sent it to a third party who if we didn't have this warrant, I mean, it's not like these things, it's not like Ms. Bettman's on the stand right now testifying to this. We are using a detective who accessed this through a cell-right download and a search warrant.
It wasn't well, I think it's beside the point, but it wasn't a search warrant. It was a consent to search from Susan Devon herself. But be that here nor there.
But this is still, we are not in a situation where somebody was told something and then that person is on the stand saying, hey, I know this information. This is law enforcement gaining something from a search device. And I think that's different. And I think that this is still, to the extent that the child has, confidential communications, child has a right to privacy, but also there's parents' rights, and it's all kind of murky here. I don't think that this communication has been breached from Collin's perspective. And I don't know that Susan or Kathy have the right to breach that on Collin's behalf without him doing it. And that's the ultimate issue here is, did Collin give up his right by putting this communication on his device? Because he didn't give it to anybody else. Somebody went through that.
The question I have is whether he knew or should have known that it wasn't going to be, whether he knew or should have known others would have access to it, AKA his mother.
That is one of the hugest, of course, inquiries, which we've been talking mostly about. The other thing I mentioned, which I know you said you weren't impressed by, but you still have to consider what was the person's intent when they sent the message from that person's mind. And I would ask yourself, I would ask you to ask yourself, when Collin Griffith sent that text message, was he thinking this is a confidential communication between me and my attorney? And I would submit to you the answer is no. I would submit to you that the other inquiry that we've been talking about, that the evidence that I've presented is evidence to support you ruling this admissible, Your Honor. If your answer is no to the question about whether Collin thought that was a confidential text when he sent it, not now after his damning evidence, and he knows that, oh dang, it's going to be used against him, and his attorneys are obviously bright to know that they don't want this in. It's not how they feel now or how it might look, but when 16-year-old Collin sent that text message, there's no reason that he would be thinking about the attorney-client privilege and that this is protected. So I think those two inquiries are of paramount importance in your analysis.
It's interesting that Mr. Levine talks about how 16-year-old Collin couldn't have been smart enough to figure out that this is a privileged communication when they turn around and also argue that he's got this mock trial paperwork that's somehow informing him about how to make this whole grand plan to lure his mother to Auburndale. So I think that's ridiculous.
Someone took a screenshot, an officer saw that screenshot, and that's why you can suspend client attorney privileges. That's his basic argument, that a 16-year-old boy should have known when he was contacting his lawyer, someone would have used that via screenshot to remove his client attorney privilege. That's his argument.
I think you start with the presumption that it's a privileged communication. The state has not overcome its burden to establish that Collin did know or should have known.
It's not his criminal case. If you go back and listen, it's because he was having a case against his mother. I think it's an emancipation case against his mother. He didn't want to live with his mother.
That he was not making a confidential communication because his mother might be able to someday look at it.
All right, Mr. Levine, you're recalling this detective.
Yes.
Do we have to do this today?
No,
Because I want to
we don't.
make sure there's no cases on this issue and would ask a related issue, analogous issue, other than the.
I don't even think there was a DV case. He was just taken away, and then and both of them were put in under the Baker Act.
I think
as
it
far as I
was
got
a
it.
DV case, because
Yeah, both of them were. I think they were both held for a couple of days, and he didn't want to go back after that again.
The general proposition that a child has the right to.
Oh, I heard it as
I
it wasn't
recognize that.
related to the DV
But
case.
it is, as
Maybe
Mr. Andrews said, murky when you're talking about
it's because I'm
parents'
angry.
rights, and children's rights, and just the basic reality. I think that kids know their parents can look in their phones.
Can, but it should.
But the question is,
Or would a child say, okay, there are certain things that my parents should look at, like my internet activity, things like that, to make sure I'm not communicating with sex predators or buying drugs or things like that. But when Kathy sees that it's between Collin and his lawyer, why is she looking at that anyway?
Because she realizes that he's going to kill her, and he's talking about how he's going to kill her.
I'm not. In any event, you know the issue that concerns me,
Yes.
which is a parent's right. I think it's sort of almost an absolute right of a parent to inspect your children's belongings
But once again,
and
we added-
the right of a child to communicate confidentially.
Yeah, because she, after the communication, apprehended the phone and saw it. And that's
Yeah, it
where I
wasn't-
think it's iffy.
Yeah, he wasn't trying to talk. She wasn't in the room when he was talking to her. She searched his phone and saw it.
Yeah. He didn't go up and say, Mom, I wrote this to the lawyer. She apprehended the phone as far as I understand.
Yeah.
If
Because there's a screenshot. They're talking about a screenshot. She took a picture of his phone
yeah.
of the communication.
Jamie, if New England one tells Jamie what was said, you meet the fish.
If anyone tells Jamie what you said, you meet the fish.
Or anyone. Oh.
With their lawyer, and those two are intersecting here. And then what a reasonable child would understand under those circumstances when they send a text to their lawyer. You know, I can't believe that question hasn't been presented to a court before.
I did a lot of research before we even came to the hearing on this. And there are, unless I was using search terms that were incorrect, but I used the 90.50 whatever that talks about the attorney-client
Yeah,
privilege.
I know what they are
Admissibility or
arguing with.
inadmissibility of privileged communications. I did attorney-client privilege with child, juvenile, adolescent. I did it with cell phone, electronic device. I mean, I tried everything to come up with something. And the only things I came up with that were even remotely related were cases that I provided at the hearing. But I'll try again.
There must be some other areas where children's rights versus parents' rights intersect in some more general sense that at least.
Why
give
haven't
us
you
an
figured that out
appropriate framework to
before
talk
the
about.
trial?
From
Yeah.
an impediment standpoint, this comes up a lot in family law where you have things that are ordered the child to do, and then one parent says no. And then what does that, at what point does the court get to step in and say that's something that we can do something about? So, I mean, that family court is the only area this really comes up a lot.
I think we
But
have
that's
to
even
be
slightly
careful of
different.
family court because you're really talking about parents not getting along and then having to figure out what's in the best interest of a child. And when parents disagree on things
push
like
this
privacy
witness
for their
till
child.
the end and then have your
Because
court
as you say,
look it
you
up.
and your family, you've decided your kids are going to get a pretty hefty, serving of privacy. My family, they get kind of a moderate serving.
Detective Peters.
Some families, though, I could see taking the position that you don't have a right to privacy in this house at all. I have the right to come in your room, rifle through your drawers, look through your papers, take your phone to the sheriff's office to see what you've been doing. So,
But I think we have an
Well,
absence of that
for no
here.
reason?
realize
I mean,
that
if
there
you
are
have a
tons of
reason.
text messages with her saying she's cutting off his service or I'm tracking him, but that's very different from looking through his communications. on his
he's
phone.
got a camera in his bedroom, Miss Thornhill. I think that cuts against that argument. I mean, that is the biggest intrusion on his privacy, if you ask me. So when that's your situation at home, and you've got that cell phone, and you're texting about putting a knife in your mom's throat,
If she attacks him with a
you
knife-
shouldn't have thought twice about that in terms of, is mom going to see that?
But could it also?
So now we're putting the burden on a child to go above and beyond what anybody else would be required to do to keep their communications with their attorney privilege.
That's my question. Where does the parent's right intersect? And that's why I asked this question. Does a parent have an obligation to facilitate that? So we're not going to answer it today. I'm going to ask that you save that for when you recall him. I'd like to hear something in the morning, either just point like, yeah, I stayed up all night and found 0, or see something. And I'm going to research it as well. Because the question in my mind has changed from what it was initially, which initially it was just ownership and control. I really don't think that matters. I think it's just the child's right to inspect. I mean, the parent's right as against the child's right.
And I will also.
You think you can come into my house, kick my dog, and steal a box of ballpoint pens? You
All right.
donkey must be crazy, Judge.
You have some other line of questioning for the detective for the rest of the day, though?
Well, Judge, and another thing that would go into would be the ring videos, but then those are kind of time consuming. So I don't know if you want to stop now, but I think logistically it would make sense to stop now.
How much footage is there, time-wise?
It's long.
So more than an hour and
That's what
15
she said.
minutes?
I just don't remember. I can copy it and answer that, Your Honor. If you can give me 1 minute, I can pull it up and we'll see.
Yeah, we might get through September 7th and not September September 7th is long.
I love how unprepared they are in this case. We're not going to see the videos. We're going to sit here and hear.
Judges, 50 clips, and then each clip.
It's between 3 seconds and 2 minutes.
I mean, we've spent a lot of time doing this. I'd like to sort of catch up a little bit. If it's not going to seriously interfere with how you're presenting your case, I'd like to fill up a little more time this afternoon.
Whatever you want.
All right. Does anyone need just a quick
Well, yeah, quit wasting
bathroom
everybody's
break or anything
time
like that?
Yeah.
by just going home early.
All right. Let's have it through.
I think we need to flush out of that argument.
The most important people in this case that everybody seems to have forgotten in this room is the jury. So we're going to take a 15-minute break and both sides take a pregnant pause and think about the jury.
Isn't Reebok coming back? I thought they were the new risks.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry for that delay. Mr. Levine.
Thank you, Your Honor. Detective Peters, we're going to next segue to September 7th of 2024. We were talking earlier about the Ring video footage. Has an exhibit been prepared that has dozens of clips from that September 7th date, the last day when the defendant was at home with his mom?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, at this time, the state would move State Exhibit 197 into evidence.
Any objection?
No.
It is received.
And we'll start playing the clips, Detective Peters. If there's any questions that I have as the clips play, I'll let you know.
They've been arguing for over an hour. I would be so mad if I was a juror.
Starting with number
I hope there's audio on these clips. Or else we could just go home.
Hold on.
Oh, there's audio.
Detective Peters, in clip 1, did it appear the defendant was coming home from his job at Domino's Pizza?
It did.
Good old
Clip 2.
Domino's.
I like the all you could eat stuffed crust.
I like Domino's.
Did he pee in the sink? That sounded like when I had been at Taco Bell the next day. Don't think about it, Jimmy.
So you can see how much on your side. Let's go to clip 3. Detective Peters, in that clip, did it appear that the defendant was holding a cell phone in a black case?
It appeared so.
Next clip.
Did you not eat your food that I paid good money for? Oh, did you eat it? Okay, good job.
What a
Oh, and by the way, I stole your candy. I ate the candy that was in your room, some of it. Not all of it, but those little weird things that are like little half-inch squares. There are a bunch of different colors, like green and red and yellow and blue. Those ones are pretty good. They said they were sour. They weren't sour at all.
Is that Kathy Griffith?
Yes, it is.
I have those.
Oh, and Colin, you have to definitely go out there and be watching it. It's longer than ever. I don't think you know how to scout the yard. I think you're like weed whacking it instead of like mowing it. You need to use the weed whacker as a mower, dude. You get that? But I just never gonna happen with it.
Was that her wanting her son to weed
See you, Helen.
whack the backyard?
It was.
Why are we going through? Oh, did you eat your dinner? I ate your warheads. Can you get the weed whacker? Why don't we get to the part that is, I'm gonna stabulate you all the time?
Yeah, like
I'm putting your
That's
work
right.
shoes in the garage. I don't have time to clean them today, so I'm just gonna have to like dust them off or something. I really don't know.
Did it appear that his mom would do his laundry and clean his work clothes and shoes?
It appeared so, yes.
I've been up since 7:30. I'm reading since 7. Finished one of them on 7. The book's there. Hold on, I have to let the dog back in. I have to start the laundry sometime soon, but I can't start it until I have closure made. Yes? Are we canceling Saturday? Has Saturday not started yet? Yes? Do I need to start the clock back over? What? Hold on, I have to put this stuff away. On the bowl on the bottom, which I know is not necessarily I've never seen a bowl on the bottom. Yeah, it's calling Riley Griffin. Your mother is here. I can help you.
Is that corner back room where the mom came out of? Is that where the laundry room is?
Yeah, so straight ahead appears to be where the laundry room or the room where you can even exit the home.
So I'm close these windows because when I see two walks in here, I'll turn this side off. Turn this fan on.
Yeah, I feel the same way, officer.
Did it appear that the mom did a lot of cleaning and laundry?
It did appear that, yeah.
Why are we watching her clean laundry? Get to the stabulations.
Well, they want to be like, look, she did all these things. Okay.
Oh, and I love you, but in case you'd like to know, my fucking ice maker is broken because of you. You put the goddamn ice cream tub up there. The ice cream tub broke that little gold piece off. There's a gold piece broken inside of my freezer that's supposed to stick into the fucking thing. But you put ice cream tubs up there and it knocked it off. I've never put ice cream tubs up by the ice maker.
Jamie, don't do it.
Oh boy. Is it that serious, ma'am?
Yeah, he broke his her ice maker. Florida, it's not a stick. I wish someone would put ice cream in my freezer, but I'll just be fatter. Even the officer is thinking, why the heck have we seen this? Is she talking inside the freezer now?
Well, you have it fast. Is that like making her sound weird?
No, I had it at 1.25. It just.
I know, but she. Oh. Well, she talks fast as it does already.
You can't hear anything. I think they're talking in another room. That's why. Maybe the horse is haunted. The house is haunted.
What? Where's my labor? It's not believable. No, it's not. They said it's not. I forgot to say. Sorry, no, what is this, Sally? What the fuck is this? Oh, you're first. I aren't my back anymore. What the fuck?
I said those are pulling out better. I was gonna come out of get rail. On that light. Hey, it's okay. I'm busy. I'll just here, okay?
I hope the court can see it.
I think, Baker, do you have it turned up? That's
Jamie, I
probably why.
changed nothing. I've even put it down to 1.25 speed. I changed nothing. It's I think they are in another room, or it's picked up by another camera or something like that. I don't know what's going on. I can't see any visuals, so I'm just kidding. Who recorded this video? It's Ring cameras. The house was filled with Ring cameras. And as I hear it, she's the one yelling. Sounds like she's putting something in the garbage disposal or something.
Yeah. Well, Max is a private high speed on pass as well.
I was going to tell you that I'm not going to be honest. So your points? Like, listen, I used that my father okay, so, or was it
It sounds like Mars attacks. Oh, her ice maker is working again. Oh, how can we stipulate to this?
What? What do you need? That's gonna take a drive over. And then never mind. Yeah.
Yeah.
You got an hour right now? No, we can take it back.
It's not going to take that long.
go put my laundry on and get an hour of sleep.
Did you do this? Yes or no?
No comment.
No, it was in the grandma's house.
So if a gutter that was gonna fall off, we pull down, and I'm gonna put something that's gonna stud that's up against the wall. No stud. Gonna fall off and rip the wall with it. Oh, how are you gonna fall off, break, and rip the wall?
She was at the keys.
What? I need the keys to the house. So, you know, put that shit in your car. You need to change your clothes? Well, you're not coming home tonight unless you're like that, and you're gonna fucking go in your eyes, I'll tell you not to fucking play your fucking like this and do this shit.
You wanna kill someone?
Mouth on this
It's
one.
not gonna kill
Fall
anybody.
down, there's no studs, there's no, you even get with me, there's no studs.
There are studs, that's why they're marked.
There's no studs.
There's studs, that's why they're marked.
There's no studs in their wall.
It's easier.
This is ridiculous, Jimmy. That is my buy me a coffee at. That's my name over at Broken. Buy me a coffee. That's Broken Baker P. Because Broken Baker apparently was taken. Iris, they haven't shown any evidence. I don't know why the courtroom isn't set up to show it.
Your papers outside because you decided to forget those too, which I paid for this morning before you decided to throw your temper tantrum. So you can come and pick those up. They're sitting outside the front door.
I think they effed up so it became Broken Bake instead of Baker. I don't know why. No, she had multiple houses. I don't know. I have kind of an idea that she might have some Airbnbs or something because they said it looked very clean everywhere. So I don't know.
Detective Peters, what was the subject matter of the argument between Kathy and her son?
It appears to be she was requesting some help hanging something in the home, and he didn't want to do that.
Did she later, after the defendant left the house, did she later put up the bookshelf herself?
I believe so, yes.
Now, it appeared that she was taking food and a drink outside. What can you tell the jury about that?
Iris, did you send me an email earlier talking about watching my channel that it really needed some work? You have to take it up with HR while we are streaming it. We can see you all later. Bye.
He entered the frame with what appeared to be Starbucks at the beginning, and then she just set his portion of the Starbucks outside.
And is this the clip in which the defendant leaves and doesn't return to the house?
Yes.
She was holding a phone and she said, send a text to Collin or something like that. And then she spoke the words that she spoke. Did that text message then show up in the text messages?
It did in Collin Griffith's phone. It did.
All right, continue.
started going through his room. It was a complete and total fucking mess. He had shit everywhere. Okay? He didn't even go to sleep last night until 1 o'clock in the morning. I was asleep by 8. I was fucking out. I took my gummies. I was asleep before he even got home. I had dinner for him waiting that I had bought for him at a fucking Mexican restaurant that delivered. And he still decides that this morning when I was like, hey, we need to get this last bookshelf up so I can get everything going. He said, no, Mom, that's just going to fall on somebody's head and kill them. I'm not going to help you do that. And I was like, Collin, I told you for the past week that we were going to get this done. And he was like, no, I need to go on my walk. And now I'm not going to be able to go on my walk because this is going to take 2 hours to get done. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, well then maybe you shouldn't have slept in because I've been up since 7:30. Where have you been? I didn't say that to him. I said to him, I said, Collin, you know what? You have a great life. The fact that you don't even do your own sheets, you don't even clean your own bathroom, all of the things that I've told him to do for a wife, he doesn't fucking do. And he just looks at me, right? And he wants to live on his own. And he's able to, he thinks he's able to live on his own. Mom, I have cockroaches coming into my house because Collin leaves candy and food in his room. Just leaves it in his room. Out. No, and I told him that. I even said, because I showed you how I had everything in those little containers, the glass containers or the the plastic ones that seal everything. I said, you can have candy in your room if it's this, because they can't get into that. And then like last night, there was an ant on the doorknob. He hadn't gone from the house to the garage on that doorknob.
I have seen horses leave smaller piles than this stream. I'm sorry, Brandon. Luckily, tomorrow we'll be back in Can Read World. Hopefully, we can get all the idiots to come in here and say what they always say.
He had to close the back door all the way, the back sliding glass door. And there were ants. He was like, Mom, everybody has ants in their house. I said, Mom, nobody has ants in their house. Nobody has cockroaches in their house. The first time you see them, you kill them, and then you start spraying your whole house with bug spray.
Jamie, if you translated this into Spanish, this is what Iris's house sounds like.
Go with me, like, if you're with me, and hold a bookshelf while I mount it to a wall.
Hey, Manny, you're bringing ants into the house.
And he didn't want to stand there and hold it. He said, no, this is going to take 2 or 3 hours. There's not any studs back there. I said, I've already shown you where the studs are. I marked them, Collin. I said, why else do you think I put 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 6 areas this thing is being bolted in, and it's not going to hold books. It's going to hold pictures. It's not going to fall on anybody's fucking head.
Yeah, I think Brandy got it wrong. He thinks it's Mr. Green tomorrow. It's not. It's motions and evidentiary.
My professor said it's fine, and I didn't do the proctorial. And I was like, you can hook up a webcam to that computer. The fact that you haven't figured out how to do that is not my fault. And I'm not going to sit here and do it for you because I'm not going to do your college work. And so he's mad at me that I'm not doing his college work, but he doesn't want to help with this. I'm not talking to anybody because I'll just get upset. No, he doesn't. I consider it. He does. He has money. He can't. He's 17. They won't give him one. He can buy a prepaid one. He knows how to do that. I love you. Okay, I love you, and I'm telling you right now. I already told Collin. I said, you leave, you do this, I'm cutting everybody off. So I'm changing my phone number. So I'm changing my phone number, I'm cutting everybody else off because I'm fucking sick and tired of this. This is bullshit. This is fucking bullshit. I try to let him sleep in, try to be the nice mom, try to do everything. I had my identity stolen. I've had all this shit going on. My own, and he can just fuck himself with his little AT&T phone and figure out what the fuck to do with life. He has a trust fund. He has a lawyer. He can figure that out.
Oh, so she admitted it was his money.
I kicked him out. Okay. Fine. He has a car. He has a brand new car he's driving around.
Yeah. Yeah, she sounds like she's a teenager. And also,
I'm cutting everyone off.
Yeah, this is you're being a parent, and that's how you're going to react. Is just cutting everybody off, cutting him off, cutting everybody off because you're just sick of everybody's crap. It doesn't sound like an adult to me. No, I think Baker has it on normal speed now. So I think that's her normal talking.
It's 1.25, but that shouldn't really
Oh.
be anything.
Well, somebody asked if that was her actual talking or if it was sped up. I thought it was on normal.
This is what I have gathered so far. She was hanging a picture, and there's ants in the room.
They're on that doorknob. I love how everybody has the same hair and pot belly every time you draw a picture of somebody.
I never claimed I was good at what I'm doing.
That's great though. Yeah, she's very dramatic. But it really what it is it's painting that picture of like because again, the state in the opening made her seem like she's just the saint.
Yeah.
And it's unraveling in my eyes because it's like, no, there's a very toxic relationship between the both of them. And I think the system failed them both.
Hey, Julio. Yeah, it sounds. Well, her ice maker was busted because that little gold thing, when he put in the ice, he broke it, and she used some language we can't use on Bible on a budget.
Yeah.
I just figured out I can't. How the hell do you draw an ant?
It's got like 3 circles, like the head, the middle part, and then the butt, the ant butt.
Yeah, this is an amateur hour, but it's fun. Well, Tim is bored.
Is she like just cleaning the house? Like, why are we watching this?
Now we're caught up. Now we can't even fast forward anymore.
Oh.
Is she doing her dishes or?
I don't know, unless she's like going crazy and like throwing his crap out.
Jamie, I think I cracked the case.
What? It was the ant. Did you call it nin ant? Nin. The ninja ant. Guys. That's a pretty good ant. Good job.
Thank you. It's been a long time since we had an ant suspect in a case, so
Yeah.
it's the ninjas.
Well, he
It's-
asked me how to draw an ant, Danny. So the fact that I said circle bodies and he went with it and he did a good job.
Can I make a bookmarking of my drawings? I need a digital something to paint on then.
It looked
Of course,
a bit
Sue
crap.
is ruining everything. Oh, we're not going to
Yeah,
laugh
you
at the
need-
nin ant. It's going to be... Hey,
See
have
all
you
the
ever had
understands-
fire ants in your house?
Oh
I
my
was more,
God, Sue.
I was surprised that Jamie didn't go mad when she heard about the plastic things with the plastic lid that could close, because
Oh my God.
you don't use that where she's from. You use the good Lego Land of Lakes butter.
Whip, the Cool Whip tubs. Yeah, Nunya's right. You need roach accomplices too, because she said roaches also. Draw a roach. Some roach buddies, please.
Oh, they are harder to make cute.
They're harder to make cute. Yeah, they are ugly bugs.
I could put a June bug in.
No. You just stay away from June bugs.
Can I do that? I'm not sure I can do that. Why am I listening to someone cleaning their house instead of me putting my laundry and make it ready for tomorrow?
No, there wasn't video of the stabulation because it was at the grandma's house.
Is it? I don't know if it looks like a roach. Thank you, Special K, for a super sticker of a little pear. Thank you for the drawing money. More drawings, please. Well, I need to get inspired before I draw. And nothing's happening in this case, so I have nothing to inspire me. Plot twist. It was the HOA Karen who hated her voice. I've seen more proof of that so far. No, he admitted he did it, so I can't say that. I could do my taxes, call my accountant who never answers me. I could do a lot of things. Kelly Didi. Or Kelly Double D, as some might call it. If nothing happens soon, I start talking about Titanic. And Iris. I'm glad the judge didn't let the prosecutor just end it and send everyone home. So we'll have to start it. Well, the good thing is we have the Karen Reed stuff tomorrow, so we can skip through stuff like that. But we don't know if there's ever going to be set.
Out.
Oh.
Cassie.
Oh.
Out. Oh, she's yelling out. Definitely don't have double D's. Oh, double G's. That's a male roach. It got wings. Oh, it means I drew something that people can recognize. No, Bingo was its name. Oh.
Okay.
Titanic is just my go-to when I have nothing else to talk about. I'll talk about how Rose is the worst woman in history since Eve.
Oh my lord.
Have you seen Titanic, Jamie?
A few times.
Did you know
unfortunately.
that Rose is the worst woman in history?
Is she? I mean, she kind of is. She's a little hussy.
Well, she banged another dude in her husband's car, stole $1 million worth of jewelry, killed her lover, didn't even pass the money on to the kids. She's a horrible woman. I'm just saying, Jamie. No, the actual Titanic has sunk. I don't know anything about it. I'm not that old.
No.
Rose from Titanic. KK.
No. No.
She's no hussy. Wait, who are we talking about? Then I'll decide. Rose from Titanic. Yes, she didn't care about her grandkids, and the grandkids went in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Do you know how cold it is out there? And then she just chucked the diamond into the sea. And we have to. Oh, that's love. No, love would be to leave it to your kids so they could have a good life. Eesh. Jack was from Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin. Shout out, Wisco.
Judge, we discussed previously that Detective Peters is going to be coming back, and I will reserve my cross-examination for when he's finished with his direct employment.
Very good. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to end here for today. It's about 4:15. This leaves you enough time to do shares. Thank you for your service.
All right, please.
I have a buddy of mine who is on oil rigs at the North Sea, and we just had a really big storm hit Ireland and I think Scotland. And he said being out there where there's nothing to slow it down, that was quite interesting. That's when you have
The ocean's scary.
Yeah, you have your safety wire on, and you're constantly grabbing onto something because you'll just whee.
Anything before we break for the evening?
Because he's the chain of
See you at
custody.
8:30.
Did they say how long the video was? I think they said it would be.
I thought he said like almost 2 hours.
Yeah.
Would say Collin a lot, like either with his mom.
Kind of right.
Still fighting.
Is that what you're saying?
One way or another.
Still fighting.
What's in the mind of
Certain things that
How long was it? Yeah, roughly 50 minutes of me drawing and us listening to a lady. I don't know. My body has a 3-4 rotation, so 3 on, 4 off, and he works for the Norwegian people, so he's not that happy because their money is worth less than ours, but he's doing fine. He's not that fat. He just have a very bad posture.
Yeah.
Jamie, luckily, tomorrow we won't be doing this. At least not to begin with. We might, depending on how long the Karen Reed trial will go tomorrow, we might be able to catch up. But it should be tomorrow be a motions hearing related to the Gretchen Voss, maybe. I'm just trying to see. If I can figure out why something. What? What? Yeah, it's other non-parties. Gretchen Voss motion for reconsideration of portion of December 5th court order regarding records disclosure. The motions will be heard on January 31st. Gretchen Voss is to provide the off-the-record notes to the court for camera review by January. The Commonwealth written response, if any, to be filed by January 24th. Beverly Canone. So that's part of it, and it's a motion and evidentiary hearing tomorrow. I know a lot of the other, well, not a lot. I saw two other people have it written down as the voir dire of Mr. Green, but it has nothing to do with Mr. Green tomorrow. I did write it in Brandy's chat. I don't know if she saw it, but just so people don't come in and it's not Mr. Green. Tash, I think you're a mod over at Brandy's. Maybe you can reach out to her and say, "Hey, honey bunny, the Chopster from Denmark says you're wrong."
Hey, honey bunny.
Yeah, I don't know, but I would love it if my mods called me honey bunny. Is what true?
What?
Yes. It's just, is that true? I'm thinking, I don't know. Hannity has a tendency to be a little behind sometimes, so
Yeah, she might be behind.
yes, she was allowed in, but Beverly put a little bit of snark in there. Beverly should, especially with the latest filings from Mr. Green, just rule from the bench that he is perfectly fine to be an expert. He has all the qualifications. He has more than enough expertise on the area. Well, someone's not winning mod of the year. Yes, Mr. Green is Cellbrite. He will be on Friday Thursday the 6th, next week. Thursday next week. Oh, you're so nice. I don't care what you call everything. Can we just go back to call it the Virgin Island, the Danish Virgin Island, because you bought them from us. And Newfoundland should be called Vineland, because that's what our ancestors called it. And first there are the first one to decide what it's called. Then some people will claim someone was there before who killed the Vikings, but tish tosh.
Tish tosh.
That's we don't really care about whatever goes on over there. It's politics. We don't care about it. If it's so important, I think Shizzy talks about politics. Yeah, the Danish Virgin Island. It's like St. Thomas and Saint. Can't remember the last one. I think you call it the American. Yeah, you call it American Virgin Islands, the Virgin Isles. My mom used to knit a lot. My daughter knits. Well, she did before she had a baby. I don't know if she still does it. I'll call you, honey bunny. Jenny T, you're a lifesaver because the rest of them won't do it. Even Brandon, who's going for mod of the year, won't do it. People are so mean to me.
Nah.
And anyone who wants to rename Greenland and think I'll get mad if you buy it, it's 4 billion. I don't have to spend a year. And they want to secede from us anyway, so you can have it. because they want to succeed and still have us pay. That's like my ex-wife. I want child support. We're not married anymore. But it's the law. So, yeah. You and Jobster need to get a room, a large room. Well, Brandon is kind of, yeah. Fake mud for life. Jamie, we'll be back tomorrow a little before 9. We might have Valhalla with us tomorrow.
Yay!
For
What a Friday treat.
It is a Friday treat. And we will catch up with this trial before Monday. I promise you that. I don't know how long Karen Reed will go tomorrow. Stab Your Day will be in its normal slot Saturday. But if then I can do it later Saturday. Yeah. What time is it? It's 10:30. Can I get out of bed again and do a night show? I'm not sure. You're off like a prom dress on a prom night. Not my prom night because Daddy didn't get none.
Did you want to though?
Maybe not with my prom date, but
yeah.
I was 17 or 18 at the time. A slight breeze was enough to excite me, so of course I wanted some.
Of course.
Everyone have a great day. Sorry that chat is great. The case is really bad at showing us anything. Hopefully my illustrations illuminated you enough that you know Sue will yell at you if you get fire ants in her house.
Don't be laughing at those ants.
Yeah.
That's funny.
And if you take a June bug into Jamie's house, you will be begging for a stabulation.
Yeah.
What exhibit are you referring to?
I'm going to make this 100, Your Honor.
All right.
100. Because it is 100%.
100%.
Checking your order.
So you literally built a cannon?
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
All
right, I'm in love.
Go back. Please do that again. Oh, that was the cutest thing I've ever seen.
While I'm waiting for this, did you, whether it's true or not, believe that Mr. Randolph had slept with your wife?
I wouldn't have cared.
You wouldn't have cared?
No.
Did you believe he had slept with your wife?
No.
Did you believe he slept with your mother-in-law?
Probably did. Everybody has. Everybody has.
Sorry.
What exhibit are you referring to?
I'm going to make this 100, Your Honor.
All right.
100.
100.
Because it is
100%.
Checking your order.
So you literally built a cannon?
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
All right, I'm in love.
Go back. Please do that again. Oh, that was the cutest thing I've ever seen.
While I'm waiting for this,